Critical Frames, a PlayStation podcast, is available on all mainstream audio and video feeds. Thank you for choosing us as the voice in your ear today, and we hope you enjoy.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Critical Frames, a PlayStation podcast. I am Brian Arvett, and I am here with my co-host and executive producer, Joe Smalley. How are you doing today, Joe?
Damn, dude, I like that title, executive producer.
Doesn't it sound good? I mean, it's true. You do all the technical work here.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. I'm excited to start this endeavor and kind of have this structure where we can kind of take our time and just chat with each other. It doesn't have to be super rigid and chasing a time limit. But yeah, guys, so just to kind of give you a little bit of an introduction to what Critical Frames is going to be, and then kind of move over to introducing ourselves. Basically, this is going to be a PlayStation-centric podcast where we will talk about our experiences with PlayStation, what we're playing each week, but then also get into the latest news in PlayStation and just kind of talk it out, go through it, discuss the hot button topics. And we're going to aim for being a longer podcast. So at the bare minimum, over 2 hours, but 3 or more over time. Just kind of depends on what we have to discuss and what kind of time we have left. But yeah, this is something that Joe and I have been really kind of fiddling around with for getting close to, I mean, not quite a year yet, but getting closer to a year than 6 months, where it's like we want to do a creative endeavor together. And we've done a couple different things, thrown things at the wall, learned what works, what doesn't. And that's what we're coming to do here, is kind of take some of those lessons and move forward with them. So just to kind of give you guys an introduction to myself and what I've done and who I am, nobody important. I mean, I don't think either of us really are that important at all, but my name's Brian Arvett, and I have been doing a podcast with my friend Josh called Sacred Icon since 2019. It originally started as a Halo podcast where we would talk about Halo and get excited for Halo Infinite, and which was a couple years away at the time, and that started right before COVID. So then we went into COVID and kind of really buckled down on that podcast, social media and stuff, and we really got into it. Really got into podcasting. Talked about Halo exclusively for over 2 years. Got in touch with a lot of cool people. We were on Halo Waypoint a couple times.
Nice.
And just had a great time, but we got really burnt out on talking about one topic. So then basically after the first 2 years, my friend Josh and I just kind of went into talking about whatever we wanted, whether it was other games, movies and television, and Sacred Icon just kind of turned into a hodgepodge of whatever we were into, which is great in the sense that it's fun and we have a following over there and people who support us. But there's been a longing from me to have something more focused. And it's been kind of hard to pin down what I want that to be. And as Joe knows, he's known me for years, kind of just like throwing stuff to and fro and saying, Joe, I got an idea. And then he's like, but Brian, that idea sucks. And I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. It does suck. And then sometimes trying the idea and not realizing it sucks till then or whatever. But yeah, so my history with PlayStation goes back to the very, very beginning. And I'm not going to get too elaborate on this stuff, guys, just kind of give you an entry point before we get into everything else we're going to talk about. But I grew up with a PlayStation 1 as my first family console, got it for Christmas, was really into like Crash Bandicoot and Spyro. I was born in 92. I'm almost 32 years old. So I was so young when I got our PlayStation 1 that things like Spyro and Crash are what attracted me. Tony Hawk, Pro Skater, things like Final Fantasy and Metal Gear Solid. I know a lot of people played those. I know a lot of people played those when they were kids, but like for me, I'm like 5-6 years old. I wasn't interested in those games. Joe here is going to be the one who provides more experience with those kind of titles. But yeah, so my history with gaming goes back to literally from like 3 years old, but then PlayStation, I think around the time I was 5, that was my kind of entry point to really getting into gaming. And my experience with gaming has been my whole life, but PlayStation specific, I have a lot of experience with PlayStation 1, kind of went into Nintendo during the PlayStation 2 years, so I really don't have a lot of experience with the PlayStation 2. Obviously, I know a lot about it. I think I'm a very knowledgeable person when it comes to the industry, but I didn't spend a lot of time on PlayStation 2. And then I kind of really dipped my feet back into PlayStation with the PlayStation 3, specifically in its later years as it got more exclusives and they got things worked out, all the kinks worked out from that tumultuous launch of PlayStation 3, and then really went heavy into PS4 and now PS5. And I think right now, as the industry's crazy and the things that Microsoft is doing, and even the things that Sony and Nintendo are doing, and PC and Steam Deck and all these things, there's so much going on in the industry. Things are going crazy. It's changing every day. But Joe and I have a lot to say about the industry and a lot to say specifically about PlayStation.
Yep.
And I think we kind of want to take our knowledge with that platform, with that ecosystem, and bring it here to make an awesome podcast for you guys. But yeah, so my experience with, like I said, with gaming has been my whole life. PlayStation's been mostly my whole life. As far as just me as a person goes outside of podcasting, I live in West Virginia and I'm married and I have a kid, and I live a pretty simple life outside of this. I don't have like a tech industry job, which Joe has something much closer to that, as I'll pass it over him pretty soon. But I work at a hospital stocking supplies, and I live with my wife and daughter here in West Virginia. And I just love video games and I love media and I love talking about it. And Joe met me through my first podcast, Sacred Icon, and we got to become real good friends. He's from overseas, but he's actually came here and visited me, and it's been awesome. We got to see each other in person, which was crazy.
Yeah, that was wild.
And just Joe's just a good friend, but he's also a great voice and a talented guy, and I love doing stuff with him. It's so much fun. So yeah, that's kind of just the very basics of me. So Joe, I'll pass it over to you. Why don't you share with us a little bit of your history in gaming, in PlayStation, and kind of some stuff about you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, thank you for those kind words, dude. I mean, feeling is mutual. Yeah, I mean, where do I start? I guess life is where I start. So obviously my name's Joe Smalley. I'm a very small UK, I would say, content creator, very small. Like you said at the start, we're not like any big names in the industry or anything, but I like to do video editing. I love like all things tech related. I love like animating like small scale things. What else? Like born in Britain, as you know, overseas, oi mate, all that stuff, fish and chips. And yeah, I mean, my current hobby is kind of like mountaineering, hiking and stuff like that, which is something that has taken up so much of my time. And it's kind of like taking me away from kind of the like playing the games, like I always have I have more time in many ways to speak about the industry and speak about the games than I do to play the games nowadays. And I feel like that kind of speaks to a lot of people potentially nowadays who are adulting. And in their like mid 20s / early 30s or whatever, late 20s as well. But yeah, I guess my history with PlayStation is back to the PlayStation 1. I mean, I was 5-6 years old when I first started playing games and stuff like that. And I remember my uncle gave me his PlayStation, his original PlayStation. And it was Metal Gear Solid. The first game I ever played.
That was your starting point. Wow, what man! It's almost downhill from there.
Yeah. And I have very like sort of tunnel vision memories. It's not very vivid or anything. It's not very detailed. But I remember not knowing kind of anything of the story. I couldn't comprehend anything that was going on. But I just remember playing with my uncle and my dad, and just feeling like, wow, this is so cool, like all these like characters on screen, like Solid Snake and stuff, and like Meryl, and yeah, it was mind-blowing. And to this day, like I still like cherish that game as like top 5 video games of all time for me, So yeah, and then obviously as the PS1 carried on, I started to like get more into the platforming stuff, the Crash Bandicoots and stuff like that, Ridge Racer, with the racing and all that stuff. And then as I went on, obviously PS2 was out, PS2 was out at that time, because I'm born in 99, so this was around 2004, 2005. So
you said it was your uncle who gave you, or your grandpa who gave you the PS2? Uncle?
Yeah.
So he probably gave it to you because he got a PS2? I mean,
no, he just passed it on, and he's cool. Since fallen out of gaming and stuff. But yeah, like and then it was the PS2 immediately after, just kind of like how I am with the Xbox. Halo Combat Evolved to Halo 2. It's like it was all there ready for me. Like it was like an all you can eat like buffet kind of thing, you know, a banquet. And then it was just like, wow, this is unreal, you know, like upgraded graphics. Obviously, I played Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 3, you know, like obviously Jak and Daxter, you know, all that stuff. Like Ratchet and Clank was a big one. Like that's on my top 50 games of all time. God of War.
Sony had so many mascots to choose from. It was insane.
Yeah, it's weird that, isn't it? Because I feel like Marcus Phoenix and stuff has never reached the height of like the broad spectrum of what like PlayStation has to offer in terms of the mascots. Like Xbox has Master Chief. And I feel like that's kind of it in many ways.
I mean, they had Marcus Phoenix. They had.
I don't think he's that icon. Like he's not that much of an icon though. You know.
No. Plenty of people have no idea who Marcus Phoenix is. They might know what Gears of War is, but they're not Marcus Phoenix. So like I love the PS2. It's in my opinion the greatest console that PlayStation ever released, still to this day. Yeah.
I probably overall prefer like the PlayStation 4 for games, but I think from a console perspective, PlayStation 2 is just unreal.
Still the best-selling console of all time.
Yep.
It is possible that the Switch could pass it, but it still has quite an uphill journey.
Yeah, and then the PS3 happened, and I fell out. I fell out of love with PlayStation in many ways. I still enjoyed the games. Like I still had one. I had the original PlayStation 3, and I literally played like The Last of Us at launch, and you know, Uncharted was like an amazing series and stuff like that. But ultimately, it just felt like a system that wasn't capitalized on in many ways, and to this day, I still hold that feeling. And then like brushing over the negative onto the PlayStation 4. So, and then with sort of the decline of Xbox in the 8th generation, I moved on to the PlayStation 4, as many did. And I actually had both at the same time, an Xbox One and a PlayStation 4. And I ended up just absolutely like drip feeding myself into the PlayStation ecosystem once again. You know, I got to the point where I put my Xbox One in the cupboard. I think that one behind me there, it's in that one. And I just never really picked up the Xbox One ever again. You know, once I think around 2016 hit, 2017, that was it.
It wasn't nearly as compelling.
Nope. I mean, like PlayStation 4 and Xbox had like kind of a weird like rollout, just like they did with like all that sort of like tech demo-y Killzone Shadowfall stuff, you know, Order 1886 and Rise Son of Rome on the respective platforms.
But Sony got on a good pace, and when they did, they didn't stop, and then Microsoft never really found it.
Nope. Yeah, and then ever since then, like I found God of War, Spider-Man, God of War Ragnarok, you know, The Last of Us Part 2, like they all are just phenomenal games, and then it's carried on all the way through to the PlayStation 5. And right now, like I still swear by the PlayStation 5. It's out to my right, and my two consoles or my two platforms of choice are PC and PlayStation 5, and it'll probably stay that way until either Microsoft decides to pull their finger out or, you know, something else happens. So yeah, that's my history with PlayStation.
Okay. Well, last question as far as PlayStation introductions go for you, Joe. What is your personal favorite PlayStation console, and what is your favorite PlayStation game? And we'll go ahead and say that it needs to be exclusive. It's okay if it's on PC or whatnot, but like favorite PlayStation exclusive.
Okay. So, favorite console. It's hard. I'd probably say the PlayStation 2. PlayStation
2 is your favorite PlayStation console?
Yeah. Okay. PS4 is so close behind though, dude. It's crazy. So some days they're neck and neck. And then I would say, but then like as a kind of sort of not exactly like a different thing entirely. Like I would honestly say like Death Stranding is probably my favorite PlayStation game.
Death Stranding.
If not Death Stranding, I'm probably looking at maybe God of War Ragnarok.
I thought you would say Ragnarok, but you're not sure between those two, huh?
Yeah, like they're so close, dude. Like the top five, it gets murky. What about you, Brian?
Okay. For me, I would say my favorite PlayStation is the PS4. I have great memories for PlayStation 1. Like I said, I wasn't really there for PS2. I have good memories with PS3, but like for me, it was like PlayStation didn't seem... So PlayStation 1 and 2, PlayStation seemed really cool.
Yeah.
Then 3, it was like, oh, it's not cool anymore. And then, and so I was on Xbox side and stuff like that. Well, then PS4 was the first time in a long time that PlayStation felt cooler than everything else. I'm like, I genuinely feel this is cooler than all the other places to play. And then, of course, the straight fire games they had on there was just absolutely insane. And there's so many games that I could say are my favorite PlayStation games, whether it be something like God of War 2018 or Bloodborne, or like even just original Crash Bandicoot, because how much I have nostalgia for that. But for me, and I'm sure a lot of people might roll their eyes, my favorite PlayStation exclusive, I'm going to have to say, is Final Fantasy VII Remake, which Joe actually played recently. He thought it was good, didn't like it as much as me. Maybe we'll get into that someday. But I would like to say Final Fantasy VII, the original, is my favorite. But just by the nature of how I discovered that series and how it affected me, I think 7 Remake is the pinnacle moment for me of like, I have just played so much on PlayStation that's so good.
Yeah.
And then I play 7 Remake and I'm like, I think this might be one of my favorite games of all time. And then 4 years later, I'm still like, I think this is better than most all games I've played. I still liked it more than Rebirth even.
Wow.
Yeah, but just I've explained before in my other podcast, and maybe we'll get into it one day here. But like Remake came out during COVID. My wife and I weren't working. We had no kids, and it was just all in on Remake. This amazing experience of it, discovering this world, because neither of us had really played 7 before. So yeah, PS4 and 7 Remake. So you can imagine, and then that's the console that came out on. So just like pure bliss there. PS5 totally has the potential to be favorite PlayStation quality, but right now PS5 is very much in this pocket of like continued PS4. It feels like PS4 Part 2, and a lot of the games are playable on both. So obviously we haven't got to a place where it has its full identity yet. But so that's just kind of to bring us in on who we are and our experience with PlayStation. But before we get into the PlayStation news at hand, Joe, I just want to ask you a very simple question. How was your week? What have you been up to? And what are you looking forward to for the rest of your week? Pretty simple, outside of games.
Yeah, I mean, like in the UK, you guys in America wouldn't know because like news only goes one way when it comes to America to England and England to America, or the UK to the British Isles. But it's the hottest day of the year so far in the UK. So
wow.
I've got the old knees out, the hairy legs out, and it's just nice. It's nice weather. When last weekend we went camping in Derbyshire in the Peak District, and my head got burnt. So this is the first time my head's been burnt since I shaved my hair off, right?
Really? Wow.
Yeah, and like, because it's never sunny over here, dude. Like, come on, you know what it's like, the stereotype. I mean, that's the truth. And yeah, burnt my head, and it was like I went in the shower and I was like, like it was like, oh my god, like, I've never felt that before. Like, holy shit. So yeah, that was interesting. So I've been wearing my hat all week, like to keep the sun off my head. And yeah, dude, I went camping at the weekend. It was fun. We camped one night on top of a mountain. That was a great time. And
but dive into like, what does it feel like for you when you go on a trip like that? You get out, you get away from all the technology, you camp, you do those things. Like, what does it feel like for you doing that?
Hang on.
And then after that, tell me what it feels like when you come back to reality.
I'm gonna bring something on camera here for you guys.
Okay, I'm ready. He's grabbing it right now. I'm interested to see. Okay, is that your backpack camp hiking bag?
That is it. This is it.
Okay.
Everything goes in here for like 2 or 3 days,
Nice.
and you wrap
Dude.
it up, and it's like it's dope, dude.
I love it.
You're literally living out of a bag. But
That's kind of cool though to strip it down to that though. I love that.
yeah, dude,
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's fucking badass. It's one of those things where like I'm hardwired into like the internet and technology for my job and for obviously this, like my hobby. This is still my main hobby. So then it's lovely to have a secondary hobby that is I can get away, I can chuck everything in a backpack, and me and 3 of the lads can just go and like camp and get away from all that. The most we do is take a pack of cards, and the night goes like that. There's no boredom because we're all just chatting, talking shit, taking the piss out of each other, and it's just fun to just kind of sit and decompress. And there's so many times like I dedicate, like when I go camping, I dedicate like in the evening and the morning, I dedicate like half an hour at least to just sitting there and just like zoning out and just like looking around me and enjoying the time that I am there. And it's just like it's like therapy. It's decompressing everything.
Yeah.
And then like it's one of those things where when I come back from camping, Brian knows this, it's almost like everything that everyone's talking about in Discords and stuff, like news and like panicking about the industry and stuff. I'm just like this. Like
Who cares?
I don't mean to be like so condescending and like so like trivializing everything and being reductive, but I do, like I just feel that way. Like that's my natural like state of mind, and it just comes out, and I'm like this whatever. Who cares? But then I take
most
a day.
Most of that stuff just people forget about too. Like the biggest complaint in tech, like it's over with. It's a passing, fleeting thing. Yeah.
And then I take a day and I'm back to it, and I'm passionate again because ultimately I am. And I care about this stuff. So yeah, that's my week. This weekend we're going camping again, and the weekend after that we're going to the Lake District, which is a bit more north than the Peak District. Yeah, it's fun times, dude.
That's super exciting. So this is good for you guys. Like here, we're recording on a Thursday. You're getting like peak of the week tech interest from Joe before he goes camping and it all dissipates again.
Yep. If we recorded on like a Sunday, say I got back in the Sunday morning or whatever, it's over.
I'd be like, here's a story, Joe. And he'd be like, shit. And I'd be like, here's a story, Joe. And he'd be like, shit again. And I'd be like, come on, Joe. Give me something. See, that was my impression of you saying shit.
Shit.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, that sounds awesome, Joe. And I love hearing about your experience camping and stuff. And you know, while I'm probably not as familiar with it as you. I mean, I've spent a lot of time hiking. Yep. I went out to the Colorado mountains. I've been there many, many times. And I don't know if I would compare this directly, but I spent a lot of time camping in a tent with nothing but like a sleeping bag growing up, you know, living out in, I grew up in the Midwest. So, spending the night out and like at my grandparents' farm and stuff. And so I have a lot of experience with that stuff too. And I do really enjoy that. And I'm somebody who like, I'm not like physically fit or, I'm not a runner or anything, but I'm somebody who can get enjoyment out of walking for 10 miles if I just have someone to talk to, which my wife doesn't have at all. So it's like, I don't do that too much anymore. Cause like, I'm like, hey, let's go for a walk. And she's like, let's go 3 blocks and come back. I'm like, I want to spend 2.5 hours on this walk. Like I love that. I just enjoy that so much. But I think it's going to be pretty typical probably as we do episodes and we talk about how our week's been, that I'm going to be the less interesting one. For those of you that don't know, just to fill you in, like Joe is 25. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
25. And I'm just about to turn 32. So about 7 years between us. I'm married and settled down with a child. So like my week has mostly just been like go to work, come home, take care of the kid, hang out with the wife, watching some TV. We've been watching Avatar: The Last Airbender, like the actual cartoon series.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because my wife's a huge fan. I've never seen it. We're on season 3, which is the last season. I'm really becoming a fan of it. I'm really enjoying it. Such a great show. I totally understand why people have such an attachment to it. But so my week's basically just been taking care of the little one and watching that with my wife. I'm excited for tomorrow. Tomorrow will probably be the most exciting point of my week. So 2 things going on tomorrow. When I get off work, I'm going straight to the movie theater to see the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes movie.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Because I really like that franchise. And luckily, this is their 4th one in a row from this reboot. And it's got great scores. And it's got, even though with the new director, it's the director who did the Maze Runner movie. So I really didn't think this would happen. He's also going to do the Legend of Zelda movie, which is interesting. But it's got great scores, certified fresh. So I'm going to go see that tomorrow.
Is that going to be a cartoon or a live action thing?
It's actually live action. I don't know about that.
Ooh,
but
that's
it's interesting.
I thought it was going to be like Mario, but yeah.
No, it's going to be live action. So I'm not too sure about that. But this movie's turned out great. So I'm going to go see that. I'm going to get some popcorn and a soda, have a great time by myself at the movie theater because I have a few hours. This time that Joe and I are recording, that's the few hours when I'm home alone. My family hasn't got home yet. So I'm going to spend that time tomorrow seeing Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And then to top it off, when I get back home after seeing that, we're going to celebrate Mother's Day 2 days early tomorrow. I haven't told my wife this yet, and she's not going to listen to this podcast, so it won't be a spoiler or anything like that. But what I decided to do for my wife for Mother's Day, since she doesn't like to spend money a lot, she doesn't like to get big gifts. Tomorrow, after I see the movie, going to come back home, and me, my wife, and my daughter are going to go to a local park. And I hired one of our friends to take pictures of us. So we're going to dress up nice and take pictures, which will kind of be like, it'll be sweet for her to have pictures of like her family at this stage of life. And my daughter's not quite 2 years old yet. And then we're all going to go to a nice ice cream place and get some ice cream and take pictures at the ice cream place. So it'll melt my wife's heart. So it'll be good.
Just like the ice cream.
Just like the ice cream, right? Yeah. The ice cream will be melting. My wife's heart will be melting. And I'll be over in the corner cheesing like a dad, like, I did a good job. So, yeah.
I'm in the good
so,
books.
Yeah, so tomorrow will be the hype of my week, probably.
That's awesome, dude. Hell yeah.
Yeah, so there you go, guys. You got an introduction to Joe and I and what we're going to do with this podcast or some of our history. Each week we come back, we will kind of do introductions like this where we kind of talk about the week and stuff, kind of just let us get warmed up before we get into all the PlayStation and tech drama. Because the truth of the matter is, for as much as Joe and I like this stuff and we're passionate about it, like we do have, in different ways, we have a good connection to reality and our lives and how this shit doesn't matter. Like, it matters and we care because we care about it. We're passionate about it, but like so much more to life than gaming and tech. And I think that helps keep us grounded. But when it's time, we can dive right into it. So we're going to do that right now. We're going to get into the news. So what we're kind of going to do, guys, we're going to go into these stories. I'll read some of the article. We'll discuss it, go back and forth. And we're going to do news topics for probably, I don't know, hour and a half. And then we're going to get into what we're playing. And we have a good structure, I think, for the podcast going forward. So, all right, guys, this is from The Verge, inside Microsoft's Xbox turmoil. So you might be asking, Brian, this is a PlayStation podcast. Why are you getting inside Microsoft's Xbox turmoil? Well, for those of you that listen to plenty of other podcasts, you're probably going to realize that a lot of what Microsoft's doing right now affects PlayStation because their games are coming over here. Just a lot of crazy things are going on. So this is what I wanted to pull directly from here first. If you scroll down, in the midst of all these things going on Xbox, them shuttering studios, and after they've acquired them all, it says Xbox now has a strong lineup of games planned for 2024, with Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 set to debut in a matter of weeks on May 21st. So it's May 9th today, guys, just a couple weeks away from Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. This is a game that me and Joe are both excited about.
Yeah. I
already have it pre-ordered on my Xbox because that's not a PlayStation game as of now. But continuing on, this is from Tom Warren at The Verge. He says, I understand Hellblade 2 is another game that Microsoft has been considering for the PS5. If that ever happens at this point, it's not clear if even that would be considered a success. So, as many of you know, probably Microsoft has brought over Hi-Fi Rush, Sea of Thieves, Pentiment, and Grounded to PlayStation 5. Also, some of those games on Switch, and they're performing very well on PlayStation. People are very excited to have these titles.
Surprise.
As you know, Hi-Fi Rush's development studio Tango was just closed earlier this week, and now everyone's got their eyes on Microsoft, and they're saying, okay, Hi-Fi Rush, a game people loved, it came to PlayStation, it won awards, you close the studio. Okay, well, we have Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 coming later this month. It's going to be the first game released by Ninja Theory since Microsoft acquired them. It's been in development. I mean, it was announced in 2019, so it seems like somewhere close to 5 years. This game is coming out, for those of you that don't know, directly to digital storefronts. It'll be on Xbox and Steam at a $50 price point. So it's not full price. There's no physical release. And it's being marketed as a game that you can complete in under 10 hours. So it has a very AAA flair. If any of you played Hellblade 1, which is on the PlayStation consoles, it's a very well-produced game, great visuals, great audio, great storytelling, but it's very kind of linear and it's very short to kind of keep the budget down on that. So this is in a sense, a lower budget title. I don't think anything about the budget is low, but it is a digital only $50 title. So this is amidst all the things that Xbox is bringing to other platforms and studios they're shutting down. There's a rumor that people have been hearing murmurings that Hellblade 2 may be coming over to PS5. So my question for you, Joe, is, and then I'll answer it myself and kick it over to you. Do you think it will come to PlayStation? And do you think it makes sense coming to PlayStation? And when would it come? And for me, I'll just say, I think it will come to PlayStation eventually. The first Hellblade was only on PlayStation 4 for quite some time. That's where I played Hellblade because you couldn't get it on Xbox. It was a great game there. It made sense there, I thought, because PlayStation's very well known for their single player, narrative focused, over the shoulder, third person games. That's exactly what Hellblade is. It fit there so well. And I think I pretty much know, right? When Xbox was acquiring these games and these studios, the idea was that Microsoft's going to be able to compete from a first party standpoint with their exclusives to PlayStation. Well, now we've got to this point where so much has changed with Microsoft and everything's up in the air. It's like, okay, well, it doesn't seem like their goal anymore is to directly compete beat for beat with exclusives, and they're already bringing games to PlayStation. Isn't Hellblade 2 like a prominent, perfect game to bring over to PlayStation 5? And I think with all the money that Microsoft spent acquiring studios, and it seems like they want to recoup some of that, this is absolutely coming to PlayStation 5. And if I had to guess, I think it could come in less than a year from the launch on the Xbox. That's what I think. So over to you, Joe. What do you think? Are you with me, or is there something I'm missing here?
No, I'm well with you. I think you bang on. It makes me question though the fact that this has already been being kind of rumored, and there's like rustling in the trees about kind of like this coming to PlayStation 5. It makes me wonder like whether like Microsoft is actually confident in this product, because it's not even out yet, and they're already talking about it coming to PlayStation 5.
No marketing either.
No marketing, and it's also like, how long has this game been in development now? And I think they're gauging that interest. They're gauging that interest in terms of like, oh, it's already less than 10 hours, and they're already like putting those like sort of warning signs out from the developers themselves, and like sort of kind of, it is like literally warning people in many ways. Like the way they marketed it and they presented that, it was like, oh, this is still going to be a really tight experience, so don't get your hopes up for anything crazy. Like they kind of like doing a sort of, I don't know, like they're putting their shield up ready for like kind of Xbox gamers to be like, this is what we waited for, like this short of an experience. And I feel like obviously with the drop in price comparatively to like $70 title, I think it makes sense for them to bring it to PlayStation 5. I think it also makes sense for them to like potentially not be that confident in this game, because I feel like it's been in development for so long, dude, that I don't know, like, you know, you look at all the podcasts and the amount of people that say like, oh, well, we've seen another trailer of Hellblade, but like, wait, like, is this it? Like, it's just like a facial thing. It's about like the metahuman thing and the Unreal Engine. It's like, when are we going to see like actual gameplay? When are we going to get the release date, etc., etc.? And obviously that time has come now. But yeah, I think what this screams is a lack of confidence in your product. And I think that goes across the board for a lot of what Microsoft is right now, which is ironic considering they've doubled down on the idea that they want to like develop like amazing like IPs and games going forward and not focus as much on Game Pass. But yeah, I think you bang on. I think a year out or so, it'll be on PlayStation. Fits into that ecosystem. Bada bing, bada boom.
Well, see, originally the idea was exclusives would come to Game Pass, and it didn't necessarily matter if the games were profitable because it bolstered Game Pass and it would boost subscription numbers. But we're at this point now where it seems like Microsoft is very much wanting to recoup money and actually make profit off of their products, and they're seeing Game Pass subscriptions stagnate. And what I've heard also earlier this week is that for as great as Hi-Fi Rush is, it was still developed over years, and it was an expensive title for not a huge. Because the thing is, like, Hi-Fi Rush, if it sold well, what does well for that title mean, right? Maybe it sold over 1 million copies, but like Hi-Fi Rush was never going to sell 10 million. So several years of development into that product, and then they released it with no marketing. They stealth dropped it. Amidst like a direct, and I know that was so cool to experience last year, but there was no marketing. It was free on Game Pass, and its full retail price was $30.
2 million players max. That's all it got.
Yeah, I think it got 4 million players is what I heard.
Are you sure?
But it wasn't purchased. I'm pretty sure it was 4 million, but it wasn't purchases.
Right. Sure.
It was just like through Game Pass and stuff.
Yeah.
So I take that information that we know that Microsoft might be looking to make profits off their games, and that they weren't satisfied sales wise with Hi-Fi Rush. Then I look at what Alan Wake 2 did last year. Alan Wake 2 was what do you think's a bigger franchise prior to their sequels, Joe? Right. Is it Hellblade or Alan Wake? Because I would have said Alan Wake was a more well-known title just based off the first titles. Or maybe at least very close and similar.
I don't know. I think they're neck and neck. Alan Wake was always something that, like, the Control fans in here, like Blaster, are gonna like rope me for this, but like I genuinely think that like Alan Wake was in many ways a stepping stone to Control, and Control is kind of like allowing obviously Alan Wake 2 to sort of like trampoline off of him anyways, from like a mechanical sense, and also like just from a because like Control really put them on the map. Obviously everyone knew Remedy, like, you know, with, you know, Max Payne. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Max Payne and even like Quantum Break and stuff like that. But I think in many ways Control was the point where it pushed them into that like Game of the Year material. Like, oh shit, like Remedy are here to like throw hands with Spider-Man and God of War and stuff like that. You know, because it's a fantastic game. Like, that game is awesome.
Well, so this is where I'm going with this. So Alan Wake 2 came out last year. It's a sequel. It's come much longer after the original. Like Alan Wake 1 was like 2010 or something. You got Alan Wake 2 last year, and it was a direct to digital storefronts, no physical release game, just like Hellblade is.
I remember that.
Except it was full priced.
Yep.
And it's on multiple consoles. It was on PlayStation. It was on Xbox. It was on Steam. I think they also had a deal with Epic for the Epic storefront. And we heard recently that Alan Wake 2 is just about to become profitable. It sold less than 2 million copies. So when I look at Alan Wake 2 as a digital-only game that is not on store shelves, that is $70 versus $50, I would say Alan Wake, prior to the release of Alan Wake 2, was more or less just as popular as Hellblade. And it was on multiple platforms.
Yeah.
And it sold less than 2 million copies and is just now about to become profitable. You look at Hellblade, which is no more popular. Its only console, other than obviously it's also releasing on PC, but its only console is Xbox, which has 20-some million consoles versus Sony's 50 plus. That's not as big of an install base. The game's no more popular. It doesn't have storefronts just like Alan Wake. I think it's very clear that if the goal for Microsoft is no longer just bolstering Game Pass and they want to make Hellblade 2 a profitable experience, and this game's obviously also way higher development costs than Hi-Fi Rush, this has to come to PS5.
Yep.
There's no way. And I would think even with it coming to PS5, are we looking at Hellblade 2 life to date ever crossing 5 million? I mean, it might with sales and things like that, but like it definitely ain't going to ever hit 10 million. Yep. So we're talking like 5 million maybe with like discounts and stuff. And that's another thing too I didn't mention. Alan Wake 2's had discounts to get to where it's at, and it's not even at 2 million. So I think it's like all but written in stone that this has to come to PlayStation, unless they just want to say, we'll eat the cost on it, and it's a marketing ploy for our consoles and for Game Pass. But that's the thing is, it's a fact that they don't care. Like they've made it obvious that they don't care about console sales anymore. I think they've flat out said like hardware sales don't really matter to us anymore.
Yeah.
So we know that it wouldn't be beneficial to leave Hellblade on their console for console sales because they don't care about that. Then the question becomes, how seriously are they taking Game Pass anymore? Another story that we're not going to bring up in this episode that recently came out is Microsoft's considering not letting Call of Duty be a Game Pass game, which their promise of Game Pass was always our first-party games are day and date free to the platform if you have subscription. So if we're losing faith in Game Pass and we're losing faith in console and you want profitability to be made, Hellblade 2, I think is absolutely coming to PlayStation 5. And it almost makes me wonder, like, I pre-ordered this on Xbox because I really wanted to play this game and have an opinion about it and experience it right away.
Yep.
But it's like, man, if I knew Hellblade 2 was going to be here in less than a year on PlayStation, I might have just waited and bought it there. So
yeah,
that's where I'm at, Joe. I mean, that's pretty much all I had to say.
And
about
I also
this,
think in many ways, this applies to a lot of the games that Xbox have announced up until this point. Like, as much as like Avowed and Fable and Outer Worlds 2 and stuff are gonna like bring in a lot of players, probably more than like Hellblade, being honest, like individually and respectively. I genuinely think that those games have been in development for so long. Like, especially Avowed, like it feels like it's in Fable, like they feel like they've been in development for so long.
2020 announced.
Yeah. That like it feels like a lot of the upcoming first party, well, not even first party, but just like Xbox own releases are like complete sunk cost fallacies at this point. Yeah. And it feels like, even though they were like the last show they were like, we're only showing games for like this year.
Yep.
Was it like, yeah, it was the last show. I didn't know if it was the one before.
It was the direct at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. And it's just like, even though that was like screaming confidence in many ways, I feel like in many ways, like, to them, it's like, right, we just got to get this shit out the door. Like, that stuff's got to come, like, quickly, because we've shown this off for so long. And, like, our investors are just like, come on, like, where are we?
Well, I feel like if you're at the head of Xbox, you got to be really pissed off, right? Because you trained your entire consumer base to not buy games and to get the subscription service. So they're all trained for that. They're all sitting here salivating, saying, give us your next big AAA experience for free, provided you have a subscription. But at the same time, subscriptions are not going up.
Yeah.
They're stagnating. Yeah. So you got to be at the top of Microsoft saying, look what I did for you. Look what I gave you. I give you these free games. Like they're free to the service day one, but you're not paying us back by our subscriptions going through the roof. But and it looks like the gaming industry is more interested in buying games,
honestly,
legitimately.
And I honestly, there is no world where I fault the customer for that. There is that you cannot spin that, like, not you, but like anyone, like you cannot try and convince me that like that's on the fault of the consumer. You should have come out with Game Pass at a higher price, and I've said this in the past. Like, gaming is a premium hobby, and it always has been. We have been used. We've gotten used, and we have been like fucking mollycoddled to basically like buy games at lower price than they actually are. You know, if like we're taking inflation into account and rising costs and stuff, like SNES games and stuff, like back in the day, they cost like $70, $80. You know, like if you bring that to now, we should be paying $130, $140 for our games, you know?
Yeah, new big titles like God of War and stuff, $150 maybe.
Yeah, straight up. And like that's crazy to think about. Like honestly, like obviously I'm not taking into account the cost of living, various taxation in different countries, and all that stuff, and salaries. But like, dude, the point of the fact is like these, like with the ballooning of development costs in the AAA scene and the AA scene, it's a really like shit position to be in, to have like a subscription service that you rely on, because everything that Microsoft is from a monetary perspective is service, and everything they rely on from an Xbox perspective is service. And like that Game Pass is just not moving. And really, like it's weird because they're in this like really weird position right now where if they increase the cost of Game Pass, people are going to complain because Game Pass is like,
they'll lose subscriptions.
They'll lose subscriptions, no doubt, because people can't afford it or whatever, which is fair enough. Or they'll complain because they just don't see the value in it, because they're not getting the games and they'd rather just buy the games that they want to buy every year. You got to think how many people from a casual side are just buying the mainstream games, you know, the Call of Duties, the FIFAs. Yeah. That'll set them for the year, which is fair enough. But the only reason they have Game Pass now is because they can dip their toes in and be like, "Ooh, let's see what this is. Let's see what Helldivers do. Hellblade 2 is, Hellblade 1 is. You know, ooh, what's this? Ooh, what's that?" It's because it's cheap. That's the only reason why people like love Game Pass, and because they can try things. But like, if you increase that cost, it's over. Like, straight up.
See, and it begs a bigger question of the industry as a whole, because if the market will not support paying more than $70 for a game, because that's the thing, right? Is like, you could charge us $150 for God of War, and me and Joe are going to pay it, and you'll sell several million copies, but you won't sell as many million copies. So then it becomes like a diminishing returns thing where you would have been better to leave it off at that price. So if the market won't support more than $70, but game development is getting more expensive, and subscription services won't work, and gamers hate microtransactions, what do they do? Right? Because like I would argue, like, let's spend less money on the games, but it seems that that's not going to happen.
You can't regress. Like,
you can't regress because people have expectations. So it's like, if they're not willing to pay more and subscriptions don't work and they hate live service stuff and microtransactions, what do? It seems to me like you do just have to do the microtransaction shit. And it just, people just have to suffer.
Yeah.
Milk it. Yeah.
Milk it, go third party. Like, honestly, like, it's one of those where we bag on Xbox all the time, but they are playing chess, like, straight up. They have to. Whether they have got their mid game sorted for this strategy, I don't know, because like the news points to the opposite, with like closures of studios and all that stuff, and like, you know, seemingly no hope on the horizon. But yeah, whether they like fall through in the mid portion of like their strategy, you know, completely, which I don't want to see, because then it just leaves the competition completely open to homogenize the industry even more, such as Sony. But their long-term game hopefully is something that keeps them going, keeps them in the game in some form. And I think there is value to an extent for the industry to have like a subscription service competition war going on, not just the hardware.
For older catalog, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, not just hardware and game competition needs to be in the industry, but I also think it is worthwhile to have service, because the problem is like right now, like you look at PlayStation, bringing it back to PlayStation, because we're talking about Microsoft here a lot. Like, PlayStation's essential tier is trash, dude. Like, it's okay. So like, it's good in the sense that like you get 2 free games every month, which reminds me I need to claim mine. And like you get all like the varying like deals and stuff like that, and you get online. But like, we have to pay for cloud saves Like, really?
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Like
that's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous. And the fact that, like, you know, once you get to the essential, you get the other games, but they've put that price up recently with the premium, and the not the essential, the extra tier, sorry. And then the premium tier is just like basically terrible PAL ports of PlayStation 2 titles from European markets. So what I'm saying, what my point being is that, like, Xbox has to be there for the service because they are the ones pushing both, actually, Nintendo, in my opinion, and PlayStation to do better in that scene.
Yeah.
And if Xbox isn't doing that, then no one is doing it to, like, basically be like, right, PlayStation, what are you doing when it comes to your service? Because, like, what level, what standard does PlayStation have to meet if there is no Xbox Game Pass, if there is no Xbox, like, well, Games of Gold as they used to have and stuff like that? Like, there isn't. And they can just do whatever they want.
Yeah, I really liked that Sony very early on, they just came out and said, you know what, we can't develop our single player games and put them on a pass for free day one. We just can't do it.
This is the thing. So, I don't want that.
They just told us straight up, we can't. We're not going to try. We can't.
No. Yeah, I don't want that, but there is other things they should be doing, which I think you would agree with. But, like,
yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing is, like, you're going to hear us, like, talk about Xbox or Microsoft a lot because they are the ones shaking up the industry more than anyone right now.
Oh, yeah,
because of that, it constantly affects PlayStation in multiple ways.
Yep. PlayStation have to pivot every time Microsoft make a fuck up, or even if they succeed. It's weird. It's really weird. Microsoft, they're always looking a dominating company. Yeah, 100%.
All right, moving to our next story. Helldiver 2's latest premium war bond goes live after dev polled fans following negative sentiment around PSN account linking. So we won't go over this news that is now old, but I mean, it's less than about a week old. So as a lot of you know, Sony forced PlayStation Network sign-ins on PC players who were playing Helldivers 2 to the point where you couldn't play the game unless you agreed to it. And over 170 countries didn't even have access to PlayStation Network, so their game just became unplayable.
Yep.
And there was so much backlash from so many people across the industry on social media everywhere that Sony reversed the decision and we're back to good, which it's great that we're back to good, but like, it's like, this is one of the most feel good stories of the year. Arrowhead releasing Helldivers 2 and it blowing up.
Yeah.
And they just took a massive shit on a good thing.
Yeah.
So we're still recovering from that. And because of that, and I'll read the article here. The owner at Arrowhead decided to poll the audience on if they wanted this new war bond because he wanted to get ahead of it. He didn't want it to be a situation where, okay, this horrible thing happened with PSN linking and upsetting the community and all this negative feedback, and we're going to try to get money from you immediately after. So he polled the community, and I'll go ahead and read this excerpt here from IGN. Overnight, Pilestedt, that's the guy from Arrowhead, polled his Twitter followers asking if Arrowhead should go ahead and release the war bond following recent events. He, quote, with the negative sentiment around account linking, a concern from the team came up about, is it tone deaf to release a new paid war bond this soon? And therefore, we are putting it to a real vote in true democratic fashion, he tweeted. So please guide us. Would you rather have the new war bond, Polar Patriots? Two options were given: release tomorrow or the day of or delay the release. Release tomorrow won out with over 70% of the vote, and today, May 9th, it has launched. So this has been one of the best things about Helldivers 2 is that the studio behind it has just had like this, first of all, just great interaction with community, but like this meta narrative of like for democracy and all these things and like what's going on in the game, like treating it like it's something that's going on in real life with like Twitter posts and stuff. So to further that, well, first of all, I should say that because of the way they trained their audience, that did so much to fighting back against Sony when they tried to do the PlayStation Network thing where it was like, we're not going to stand for this, just like we're not going to stand for the things that are happening within the game. So that works so well. And then I see them pulling that forward now with this like, okay, we want to launch some microtransaction stuff, but we're going to go ahead and ask the community if it's appropriate first before we do it. And if it's not appropriate, if you guys say it's not, we're not going to put it out right now. And I think that buys so much goodwill with the community, especially when the community luckily sees Arrowhead as the good guys and really like Sony as the big like mustache twirling villain. So they put out this poll, and because of that goodwill, 73.9% of people said we want this war bond quicker. So it came out today, and they're able to make money off of this new microtransaction. So I think this was brilliant. I think if they hadn't have done this, it wouldn't have went near as well. I think they're going to sell more of it because they did it this way, and just goes to show how much I love this studio.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I mean, like, I want to touch on, like, kind of the background of this, like, with the whole, like, PSN linking and stuff. Like, obviously, we didn't have this podcast when that happened, and when this happened, actually, I was in Derbyshire. I was camping, and then I got back, and I get a message from Brian that just says, like, he literally has, like, one word, like, or one line, like, the Helldivers 2 community is in free fall right now, or something like that, and I was just like...
Yep, that was it. Just it went to shit.
And I was like, wait, what? What did I miss? Like, the weekend I went away. Yeah, dude, it was crazy, dude. Like, that is an example right there of Sony hubris at its prime, and they do this every so often. They establish feature sets, or they establish hardware or price points or system services, whatever you want to call it, when it is not ready. When the industry is not ready, when the community is not ready, when the world is not ready. And in this case, like, I mean, this goes for the price point of the PlayStation because they shipped the Blu-ray disc with it, you know, and they knew they was on top after the PlayStation 2. You know, people were not ready for that price point, and they still aren't. You know, this is the same thing. Like, this is not the industry's not ready. This is simply the fact that your systems and your world is not ready. You cannot have 17, I think it's 17 of your countries that have PSN only logging into your game. Like, that is wild, dude.
That's a very small percentage. I mean, it's probably the most important percentage to them, but still.
Yes, like, you're probably looking at more players per capita in those 17 like countries than you are the other. What did you say, 170 or whatever it was?
177, I believe.
177 countries. But, like, at the same time, dude, like, this is not how you do your game. And, like, just to impress, what was it, market share, market holders, you know, like, shareholders. Like, this is not how you do it, you know?
Yeah.
Wait, Sony, hold fast. You are too hasty.
As many have said, it's not my idea at all, but if they had just said, like, put a post when you go to log into the game that's like, hey, if you're willing to link your PlayStation Network account, you'll get this free war bond.
Yeah.
I mean, they would have got so many people. I wouldn't have got everyone, but they would have got so many people, it wouldn't have been any backlash.
Yeah.
You know?
And the thing is this game, like Helldivers 2, I play it. Brian doesn't, but I play this game. Well, I played this game a lot. I haven't had a chance to play it a lot recently, but, like, they've done Twitch drops. Like, they've had a Master Chief inspired Xbox suit. Yeah. So, like, if you can do it for Twitch drops, do, like, an incentive for PlayStation. Like, we do it at our company. Like, sign up to our newsletter, you get a free PDF or whatever. You know, like it's there. Like, it grows your lists. And yeah, I think that was wild. I think that was wrong. I think it's sad that, like, you know, the Helldivers community has kind of, like, got a bad taste in their mouth in many ways now. And I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if the player count has dropped a little bit because of it. And people are just like, oh, I just don't. Now I feel bad about this game, and I just don't really want to, like, return after what they did to me, you know, especially in the countries
poison the well.
Poison the well, you know, like, it's all tainted now. So yeah, dude. But like, the fact that they did this, like, fucking, one thing I will say is Arrowhead, they are fucking legends, dude. Like,
yeah,
I've been saying this for a while about companies and studios. Be open about everything you do. Like, straight up, put your feelers out there, see what comes back, you know, use your antennae, like, get out there, figure it out, use your polls, use your, like, community, because, like, the gamers want to, like, improve things. Gamers want more. People, like, want to support your product. You know, like, we just got off a conversation about people wanting to buy games outright rather than do services. It's there. The platform is there. We want games to last. We want to support it, and Helldivers is a prime example of that. And Pilestead, like, the guy who's, you know, is the creative director, the lead of Arrowhead. Like, fuck yeah, dude. Like, that's awesome.
See, we're not dumb, right? Like, the gamers are way smarter than companies often realize. It's like, we know that you want to put out war bonds to make more money.
I will happily buy.
Yeah, like, are you giving us a service that feels fair and fun and worth the value of the base game we bought already?
Yeah.
Yes. And then, are you treating your community right? Yes. Okay. Well, then release a war bond, and lots of us will buy it. And the ones of us that don't buy it, that's fine, but we're okay with them making that money, getting that bag, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. The game is made. The game is done. The game is great. If you want to make some extra money, you want to earn our chunk change, do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great
so
stuff.
I love these guys. These guys are great.
Yeah.
Moving over to our next story. This one is pretty controversial. Actually, I'll get to this when we get into what we're playing later. But I did just start Stellar Blade just to kind of see what I think of it. Actually, quite impressed so far, but we'll get to that later. But this is about Stellar Blade, the Stellar Blade censorship controversy explained from Game Rant. So this one's a little political. I think it's very interesting though. I'm interested to see if you agree with me or if you have a different take, Joe. So Stellar Blade's Day 1 patch changed 3 things. There are 3 major elements which were affected by the patch: Eve's costumes, that's the main character, Eve, the game's violence, and a piece of graffiti in the game's overworld. While censorship of the game's violence is causing more discourse in Japan, where CERO's aversion to virtual violence is causing many games to be effectively banned in the country, in the West, fans are more concerned with censorship of the game's costumes and accidentally racially insensitive graffiti. This has resulted in Stellar Blade becoming the focal point of a wider discourse about the influence of political social preferences on game design and the self-censorship of artists worried about upsetting or offending groups with social influence. Stellar Blade's costume designs being changed, lace being added to cover cleavage and expose thigh, has seen some fans claim that the changes were requested by Sony in response to negative critical reactions to the game's marketing by Western critics who believe the game's character designs were sexist. While Shift Up denies this, that's the developer, with the game's director claiming that the costumes in the Day 1 patch are how the final versions were always intended to look, Sony has been issuing gamers with refunds for false advertising, and these refunds have been seen by some as an admission of guilt. A Change.org petition calling for Stellar Blade to be reverted to its pre-patch state, created by ex-Blizzard executive and online anti-woke activist Mark Kern, has been signed by over 80,000 people. So I'm just going to give you the full rundown of my opinion on this game all the way into this issue.
Okay, go for it.
Stellar Blade is a character action game developed by Shift Up, which was a Korean studio that had done mobile games prior. It's launching as a PlayStation 5 exclusive. It's not a PlayStation-owned studio, but it's an exclusive to their platform. And the main character is Eve, and she is very either scantily clad or dressed in such a way that's provocative, where her obviously her butt and her chest is accentuated and made to be very sexy. A lot of the shots are obviously making that obvious. It's very clear, and they haven't been shy about it.
Have they got the jiggle physics?
Yeah, it's got jiggle physics in it, so things are bouncing around and stuff like that. And they're selling the game on this, but they're also selling the game as like a really good game, like with like high production values and great combat and interesting characters in the story. So it's being sold on more than just that. But to be fair, it is being sold on its sex appeal. You know, sex sells and stuff. So that's definitely been there. It's been highlighted. Some of the costumes you can get for Eve make her look much more closer to naked as you go along.
Yeah.
So my opinion as a Christian practicing man, this is how I look at it, right? I think you should be able to make your art, your creation, however you want to make it.
Okay.
My belief system should not be juxtaposed onto everyone else, right? Like if you're a creative and you want to make your character look super revealing and accentuated and have barely any clothes, I think you should have full rights to do that. And if that's your vision, stick by that. For me personally, when I play a game like this, I would prefer it was a little less provocative, because I got to play this game in front of my wife, and she's wondering like, okay, are you playing this game for the gameplay? Because
sure it's about the gameplay?
Seems like more than the gameplay. So for me personally, I wish Eve had a little less focus on her body and that stuff was less accentuated, but I am not holding that against the game.
It's because you don't need it, right? Like, it's not necessary. I 100% understand.
It's not necessary. And I'm not buying $60, $70 games to get my rocks off, right?
No.
Like, this is, like, if I play this game, which I am playing this game, it is because I have a genuine interest in the game itself. Sure. And that doesn't mean that as a guy, I don't notice, like, an attractive, presented woman. It's just, so I would prefer that it wasn't like that, but I'm like, okay, I support the developers. You want to do that? Go ahead and do that.
Yep.
So while I support that, though, then I get to the other end of things, right? Because I know there's a lot of people that play this game, don't have the same take as I do, don't have the same interests, belief, whatever, and they want to see a sexy woman on screen. They want to see her as naked as possible.
That's dogs, baby.
Yeah, that's your prerogative. Okay, that's fine. But I do think, while I support you and having that prerogative and playing the game for that reason and fawning over her body, go ahead, do that, whatever. Yep. I'm also like, okay, but aren't we getting just a little crazy, just a little out of pocket here when we are asking for refunds for false advertisement because some lace has been added around her cleavage or her thighs, and starting a giant change.org petition with 80,000 people to remove the lacing. To me, that's where you get into the very like incel territory of like, bro, if you need it that bad, there's ways on the internet to get your what you want. That's not this game. I think it's absolutely ridiculous to get a refund for this. I think it's absolutely ridiculous to start a change petition and have 80,000 people sign. I think this is making a mountain out of a molehill. I think it's stupid. I don't know if the developers behind the game specifically wanted to do this for their own rights or if they did it because they were concerned about it being too sexy for some people. I don't know what the reason is, but either way, the decision was made, and this absolutely does not warrant the backlash. So that's where I stand, Joe. Yeah. Where do you stand on this game as a whole, and with this whole thing going on with like the lacing being added and the refunds for the lacing?
So like this calls back to like I play games on Twitch, right? I stream games, and like I remember once I was playing through the Metro games. I can't remember whether it was Metro 2033 or there was Metro Last Light. And
I think it was Last Light because I think I know what you're going to say, but go ahead.
Okay, yeah. I think I've actually spoke to you about this before, but there was two things. A person came in and we were like, when you first start Metro, the games, it literally gives you a disclaimer. It says, this is a mature game. There are going to be mature themes of like sexual violence, gore, hate crimes, etc., etc. And when you go through the game, clearly you find the Reds, the communists, from like, harkening back to sort of Stalin days and stuff like that. And then you also have Nazism. And then also there's a part in the game where it's not like visual or anything. You don't see anything. You just see a guy basically standing over a woman and he's like attacking her. And clearly the intent is he's trying to sexually assault her in some way. Yeah. Right? And you can either leave this or you can kill him. And obviously pretty much everyone kills him, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And I remember playing it and I remember when I came to that point, someone who hadn't chatted before in my stream just like came out the blue and was like, that should have been in the game. Like, definitive, absolute. And I remember just saying like, well, I'm not being funny, but like this is their game. This stuff happens in real life and they want to represent that in art because like, I'm not being funny, but when the world goes to shit in like these post-apocalypse games and post-apocalyptic scenarios, this stuff will happen. And it's horrible, but it's part of the human condition and some people are just sick fuckers. And like, they didn't really say anything back to that, but I was like, if you want to like present your art, you have to potentially be in the position of like potentially offending people. Not every game is going to be a Skyrim where you're just wandering around blissfully ignorant, murdering everyone. Some people some creatives want to make games where, like boobies are on show or, sexual assaults happening in their games, and they want to make a meta commentary on it, and they want to cover that.
BioShock Infinite and throwing the ball at the interracial couple.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things where I understand like kind of the sensitivity, but I also come from the perspective of a creative because I am creatively minded in terms of what I do at work and like what I do when it comes to this stuff. And I also appreciate that side of things where like I don't want my thoughts and feelings to be completely capped and hamstrung by another person's potentially, I mean, like, this is where it gets like debatable, but like potentially soft sensibilities in many ways. And that sucks when that happens, because you can't think freely, you can't create freely when you live in a society like that. And the same thing, the same person who said like, that should have not been in the game, that should be censored or that should be cut out of the game, said that like, they shouldn't be referring to Nazis as Nazis. Like, it should be censored. It should be a different word. It should be... They wouldn't even type in the chat that it's, like, concentration camps. They called it, like, they censored it, starred it out, and put camps. And it's like, that's, like, the historically accurate wordage for what those things are. And in many ways, like, there's part of me that's like, we should really be treating these things with gravitas, and we should really be treating these things with the utmost respect and referring to them specifically, hyper-specifically what they are. So when it comes to like Stellar Blade, it's kind of, like you said, it's a weird balance, because I think the people kicking up a fuss about the 80,000 people petitioning or whatever about lacing and stuff, it doesn't matter. Like, from a gameplay standpoint, I'm with you entirely, Brian. Like, it's not important that you see the boobies. It's not important that you see the cleavage. It's not important even if they remove the jiggle.
And you still see them. They're just a little lace there.
Yeah, like for me, it wouldn't bother me at all from a like a consumer standpoint. From a principle standpoint, I think that, like, I don't know, because this is a different culture. It's South Korean, right? This studio.
Yes.
Yeah, South Korean. I mean, it wouldn't be North Korean, let's be honest. Like,
people just say Korea normally.
Yeah, Korea. We don't refer to North or South. But, like, this is from Korea, and it's like their culture over there is very different. Like, just like Japan, it's very, how would you say, like, shy in many ways. And there's a lot of, like, hierarchy when it comes to the men versus the women and stuff like that. And whether that's good or not, I don't know. But that's, like, this is them expressing themselves within the culture that they have, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's known that in anime and stuff, you get the big titty girls and stuff like that. Like, it's part of it. It's part of that Asian media, that sensibility that they have.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to them censoring it from their perspective, if they did it because they wanted to do it or because they have been forced to do it, it's hard. It's really hard, because if they've been forced to do it by their publisher or whatever, by Sony, that's kind of shit. But I also understand from a Sony perspective, from a business standpoint, that like this isn't a good look. People are upset about this. People potentially won't buy this game. And is it ultimately necessary when a quick patch can do it? But like everything, like with this, the petition comes in and kind of like undoes that concern and kicks up more of a ruckus than they potentially thought would be possible when they patched it. So I don't know. As someone that isn't like of faith, right? Someone that is completely atheist, I'm like on the complete opposite spectrum of like Brian and stuff like that. Like, I think just as the voice of reason, I think I am in line with Brian, despite me being completely the opposite side of the spectrum in terms of faith and the way I live my life. So I think you're bang on, dude. I don't necessarily think it's that big of a deal. Just move on, guys. Stop signing petitions to get more booby. Like, stop.
Well, and to take it one step further, like, we're talking about something extremely small here, where it's like some lacing added to some costumes. If this was picture Stellar Blade as you know it now, if the day one patch removed, like, made it so that all of her clothing was like top to bottom, super like covered, like freaking coats and stuff.
Yes, yeah.
And then like purposely removed the outline of her butt and boobs so you could hardly see them anymore, I would be like, okay, you've just changed whatever the integrity of the original character was.
Yeah,
you've now patched
design.
that away.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, okay, this is like you've completely altered the character. So then there's more reasoning for that. But we're talking about something so minute here. And like, I do think that this is really politically charged. I think it has to do with the grander narrative of like the anti-woke culture. Yeah. And I think they're just latching onto this. So I don't think it's that big of an issue.
No, I think it's a hullabaloo. I think they're making a mountain out of a molehill. And I mean, the same thing happened with Stellar Blade previously, right? With this like hard R like graffiti that was on the wall and stuff. And have they since patched that? Do you know? Like,
they did. And I think that one was much more fair. I mean, of course too. Yeah.
Yeah, and like even then, it's like there's arguments to be made. Like, they're an Asian studio; they don't know what that means.
They
like,
probably didn't mean that at all.
They didn't mean it.
I agree with you there. Like, there's no way they meant that.
These are assets, okay? Like, these are assets that like they've used from, you know, in their engine, and they've like ported across, and it just happens to come together. And you got to appreciate, like, and I stand by this. Like, I think in many ways, people kicking up a fuss about like the people that were kicking up a fuss about, like, you know, it being offending their sensibilities, offending them and stuff like that, and it being like horrible and not nice to be in their game. I think in many ways you're making a mountain out of a molehill with that, and I think you're honestly, given the context, because that hard R thing that they were talking about, that is a hyper specific phrase used for the English language when talking about the N word and what the context for even that word is used. And like, I can get into like what that means, but I'm not going to. You can look what that word means in terms of whether you use the A at the end of the word or use the ER at the end of the word.
Well, and I think to further clarify, because we didn't really set it up, just so you guys know, it was a controversy a week or two ago that So in the game, there is graffiti all over walls, and one of the common graffitis you'll see that's in different spots in the game, just randomly placed by the devs, was the word hard written out in graffiti. And one of the graffitis was like wall post was posted next to a broken sign, like a broken neon sign for a business. And the neon sign, what it had left was a lit R. So when you looked at the wall, it said hard R, which relates to something, a racial slur. So that ended up, that's gotten removed, which is great. But there was a whole thing where like people were like, oh, they totally meant to do this. And I'm like, okay, like, is it impossible that they meant to do this? No, but this is a graffiti that is repeated all over the game. And the fact that it happened to be on this wall and near its vicinity was another random letter that's not even in the same text. It's actually a neon light. It's pretty clear this was accidental.
Yes. And I think in many ways, kicking up a fuss about this is like it's some form of like straight up hate speech that was intentional by the developers. Like, to me, that is completely and utterly undermining games that actually are developed with hate speech and hate crimes in mind. I mean, there's a game like that's been made in Russia recently where it's set in the Russo-Ukraine war right now. And like it teaches people in Russia to fight Ukrainians. And it's
wow, didn't know about that.
Yeah, and it's gone under the radar massively, and it like has literal people who were alive under the Russian like mercenary groups like spearheading that as like a main character in it. And it's like when you see a game like this do like hard R's and shit like this, and like it's just an accidental thing, and people are kicking up a fuss. It just comes back to like the Western people, in my opinion, like just you don't realize how good you have it. Like this is nothing, dude. Trust me.
Yeah.
There's so many games that fly under the radar that like fucking do so many hate crimes you don't even realize. Like, so yeah,
we're wasting our energy here.
Yeah, it's a minefield. Enjoy your video games, guys. Don't try and get political because there's too much of that in the fucking real world as is.
Yeah, it exhausts me. Exhausts me.
Yep.
Moving over to our next story, Warner Bros. Says the failure of Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League contributed to a $200 million hit to revenue. Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League has disappointed Warner Brothers Discovery, owner of developer Rocksteady, to the tune of a $200 million hit to revenue. Reporting its Q1 financial results, Warner Bros. Discovery said its game's revenue declined significantly as a result of a tough comparison with last year's best-selling video game, Hogwarts Legacy. Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League generated significantly lower revenues compared with those generated by Hogwarts Legacy during the same 3-month period, the company said. So, I mean, over time, Joe and I have beat the heck out of this game. I don't have too much left to say, but I do wonder sometimes what corporations are thinking, because there's two different angles I have to spin on this. The first angle is when this game was first kicking off to be developed, the publisher saw the rise and success of live service, and they decided to jump on the train. And now all these years have passed, the game's finally out, and live service is hated way more now than it was when they started development. Because when they started development, the thing that was hated was loot boxes. Well, we got away from them. Well, now people hate live service. So the one thing I can give them credit for is they didn't know where live service would be when they started development. I would say that's short-sighted of them as a company, but okay, that's one thing. But the other thing that to me that's unforgivable is, why would you take one of the most prominent single-player studios who's known for reinvigorating the comic book video game, what's the word I'm looking for? Comic book video game market, I guess. They reinvigorated it. Why would you take them and then put them on a live service online only game that is set in the world of Batman, but you play as B-tier Suicide Squad characters killing the Justice League? Like, there's so many, like, I'm like, okay, why did you make the studio on a game that's multiplayer? You didn't even let them get away. Like, you could have had them do more DC single player properties, or you could have let them do something new and unique. You put them on a Suicide Squad game with the subtitle Kill the Justice League. So like the Justice League they're not often represented in games, but you're representing them as evil. Yeah. So it's like, it's a really weird premise, and they're having you play as like weird characters in this like kind of 4-player co-op setting. It's online only, it's live service. So none of that makes any sense. And then you play the game, you see the game come out, and it's like, well, the live service elements aren't even done well at all. Like they're borderline not even there. Like what the live service for this game is technically just oh, it's the samey boring missions from the story mode repeated infinitely. And that's what it is. So I'm like, so many mistakes were here. Like, you're not reading the future. You're putting a single player studio on a multiplayer game. You chose a weird IP, a weird premise. You did a terrible job at making the game super replayable and having great live service elements. And I don't know why they're even surprised by this. And as much as I hate to see Rocksteady be treated this way, and I don't want anything bad to happen to the company, the main founders already left a while ago, and I want to see them, but I want to see Rocksteady like go ahead and do something great single player again. I'm happy to see this failure in a sense, because I want them to see that this is not what we want as gamers. We don't want a predominantly single player studio making these DC properties into this crappy live service game. So I think they're eating what they've wrought here. Like, and I'm glad that they have to go through this, so maybe they can learn their lesson. I also think it's silly to compare it to Hogwarts Legacy at all, because that was a game from a massive IP that was single player and not live service, that appealed to a huge audience. It was the best-selling game of 2023. You should have never, even if Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League wasn't live service, you never should have expected it to go up there with Hogwarts Legacy. So very short-sighted of them, very poor decision-making, not surprised, glad to see it. Over to you, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, like, I completely, utterly, I can't really add anything more to that, because you just, like, ate and left no crumbs. But what's crazy about it as well is it's 200...
I'm sorry, I do that a lot, I feel like. I don't mean to, but...
No, I mean, like, I think in many ways we are quite commonly minded, but we differ in ways that matter.
Yeah.
But this is $200 million EBITDA, which means earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. So they are actually losing more than 200 million.
Yeah. It's big. Like, I feel like this is like similar to the loss of the Flash movie, which was reported to be one of the biggest.
That lose a lot.
Well, I liked the movie, but like, yeah, it was.
Dude, it was good.
I think it cost. Yeah, I think it cost $250 million to make, and the box office was less than $250 million. And that's not including marketing, so it was a huge bomb. But I think this was like a similar bomb. So I don't know what the obsession is with Suicide Squad, but
stop it, DC. We don't need it. The only reason they in my head canon, in my theory crafting brain, is that they only included Justice League because it's the way to market their game. People see Justice League, people see Superman, people see Batman. They're like, oh, you know, and that's it. Like, I there's no other reason, because like you could have been fighting anyone. Like, if you look at the boss fights of, like, you know, in the game, they're not special. They don't necessarily pertain to any of the characters. Like, I think the most unique one is Flash, when you fight Flash for the first time. But like, Superman isn't very special. Batman is not special at all. You just fight him when he's basically Scarecrow. Like, Batman becomes Scarecrow.
And I believe the final boss of the game, which I won't spoil, they reuse the like animations and combat of Flash.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. So yeah,
really bad.
It's just not a game that should have been in development. It was a short-sighted video game, and it's basically, it hits like all the trifectas of like all the points of how not to develop a video game. Overly monetized, lack of soul, short-sighted in terms of a business model. Like, the list goes on, and this is what you get. And I do resonate. I think that, like, WB need to sort their fucking shit out. James Gunn, like, runs the show, right? Doesn't he? Now?
Yeah.
Like, James, come on, buddy. Time to have an intervention.
And he
with
wants
your
the games to be integrated with the new universe that he's crafting.
Yeah. So what I think this is it's them getting their, because like WB have been shit for a while. I think now that Suicide Squad's gone, this VR title for Batman is coming out, and it's just gonna come out and be a flash in the pan and disappear, if that. I think this is the point when WB, from a DC side, James Gunn starts to like really put things into action potentially, and start things rolling, and we start to see a completely different side of WB by the likes of, you know, on the quality maybe of like an Arkham series again, but just more integrated, like you said, into the movies and stuff, which I'm down for. Like, it's not like because of this game I'm like, I'm not going to play your games anymore. Like, I just, whatever. You know, like, let's see what you can do in the future, but knuckle down, sort yourself out, let's go. You know what I'm saying? Pick yourself up.
Yeah, it's a shame, but, you know, I mean, I was not, it wasn't just me. I mean, it was everybody, pretty much everybody in the industry for at least, I would say at least 2 years were like, this game's going to suck. And then it came out and it sucked just as bad, if not worse. So, all right. Moving on to the next story. So I think Joe and I have said prior places before that Capcom is just like the best in third party right now.
Yep,
Everything
100%.
Capcom does, they're just slaying it, putting out amazing games, doing what the fans want, understanding their IPs. So this is great news to hear here. This is at Video Games Chronicle. Capcom announces 7th consecutive year of record results. The Japanese publisher recorded an 11th consecutive year of operating income growth. In its financial results released on Thursday, which covers the year ending on March 31st, the Japanese publisher announced another year of record growth. These results also mark the company's 11th consecutive year of operating income growth. Net sales were $977 million, which is up 21% year over year. Operating income was $366 million, which is up 12% year over year. Capcom's largest earner was Resident Evil 4, the acclaimed remake of the survival horror classic. It sold 3.3 million units during this financial period, taking lifetime sales of the game to 7 million. Street Fighter 6, which debuted in June, sold 3.3 million units. Prior to the release of the game, Capcom's president said the company aimed to sell 10 million copies of the game, which would break the series record of 7.4 million. Capcom's latest big title, the acclaimed RPG Dragon's Dogma 2, sold 2.6 million units since release, pushing overall sales of the Dragon's Dogma franchise to over 11 million. Dragon's Dogma 2 was notable as Capcom's first $70 price title. Yeah, Joe, this is just crazy, right? I know, and we need to talk about this more. Actually, we might be able to talk about it in our games we're playing segment, but
Yeah.
we both played Resident Evil 4 Remake and we're just in love. 10/10 experience, amazing game. Just completely, not only was it in tune with what fans wanted, but it gave us more than what we wanted. It was blissful, it was amazing, completely deserving of its success. Continues Capcom's trend of remaking these Resident Evils and doing them faithfully and doing a great job. Dragon's Dogma 2 has been a huge talk this year, potential Game of the Year nominee, something Joe and I have been interested in, but neither of us have played yet.
Yes.
Making massive sales here. I've heard that it's actually selling better than Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which I know it's multi-platform, but it's kind of shocking, which is crazy. But this is just great to see, and I'm so happy for Capcom because why would I not be happy for a company just raking in profits and dough hand over fist when everything they're doing is everything I want as a consumer, as a gamer?
That's the key.
Over to you, Joe.
Yeah, dude. I mean, Capcom are phenomenal. Seriously. As someone who grew up in the Resident Evil franchise, with number 2 being one of my favorite games of all time, and loving, Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 3, the originals, and obviously 4 as well, even though I've got less experience of 4 than I have even 5 and 6, but the original 4, that is. Seeing the remakes come out, and also the Monster Hunter stuff and the Dragon's Dogma, and even the Street Fighter stuff that I don't even touch, because I don't do fighting games, but yeah, dude. And I've said this before, this goes to show, if you make your games fucking bulletproof and you make them good and you make them with love and passion, but you also don't take the piss with the monetization, even though obviously with Resident Evil 4 and stuff, the remake, you can buy microtransactions and stuff and all that stuff, and obviously they portioned off some of the game in the original to a DLC in separate ways, but it just goes to show that this is what you get. You get your studio having great consecutive years when it comes to record results, and also you can pay your employees and you don't have to fucking get rid of them and make them bankrupt. That was a previous article that was reported by various outlets. But yeah, I
think they were offering pay increases, and stuff.
Yeah, salary increases. Yeah, absolutely amazing stuff. And it's just great, dude. Because like you said, these are games that are, in my opinion, Resident Evil 2 remake and Resident Evil 4 remake, 7 and 8 particularly, not so much 3, but even then, these are games that are well worth your time. And I think 2, 4, and 8, in my opinion, slightly, and even 7, I would say, are some of the best games ever made in many ways, or at least the best survival horror games ever made now. I genuinely think that. And yeah, dude, it's great. I love it. I mean, this comes from a time, this is obviously sort of developing on a time when Capcom wasn't doing so hot, with Resident Evil 6 being poor and stuff like that. So obviously these sales are going to keep going up and up and up and up and up, and it's great to see. But yeah, dude, awesome stuff. Excited to see what Capcom come out with in the future. And I think it's also one thing I will say about this is it's kind of like a representation of kind of like how perfectly managed Capcom are comparatively to people like Square Enix, because you constantly see like Square Enix like have unrealistic sales expectations for their games on a regular basis, and then when it always seemingly doesn't happen, they always don't hit the 10 milli mark or the 15 milli mark or whatever. They're like, oh, why not? And it's like, well, you're making like Japanese games that are RPGs, and a lot of the time on, well, the Final Fantasy stuff is, but like, you know, you have like Forspoken and stuff, and it's just like, okay, sure. But the point being is, it's like, this is like how you do it. This is how you do your company. And I'm so happy to see.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think that's the thing is like, when you look at like, you find out that Microsoft laid off a bunch of studios and they made like 30 billion that year. You get upset because you're like, you're not delivering the games, you're closing studios, you're making all this money. But when Capcom comes out and delivers all these games exactly as we wanted, what we wanted, they're firing all cylinders, we love their games. I don't care if if I read an article that says Capcom made 13 trillion last year. I'm like, well, they're doing everything I want, and they're not overloading their games with microtransactions or bullshit. They're fairly priced. They're properly done. They don't cut stuff. It's amazing. So I love the success, and that's really all I have to say about it.
Oh yeah, dude.
It's awesome, man. So this one, I don't know what to make of this, Joe, and I'm interested to hear your opinion. So many of us in the PlayStation community are huge fans of From Software's Bloodborne. It's what introduced me proper to the Dark Souls series. It is to the Soulsborne series, I should say.
Okay.
It is my favorite Souls game. It is a exclusive to PlayStation. The IP is owned by PlayStation, even though it was made by FromSoft. We got the release of this game in 2015 on PS4. We've never got any updates for it. There's never been a PC port. There's never been a sequel. There's never been a remaster or a remake. And every year, it's a thing where PlayStation fans are asking, once again, can we get at least a 60 frames per second mode on PS5? Can we get a remaster? Can we get a remake? Can we get a sequel? Can we get a PC release? Can we get anything? And it just seems to be radio silence constantly. Well, today, seemingly out of nowhere, this comes from Zubitech on Twitter. And the site that sells this is supergroupies.com. PlayStation announces new merchandise for Bloodborne, introducing Bloodborne collaboration items full of dark charm. The lineup includes a pocket watch with the image of a stargazer, as well as boots and gloves that allow you to become a hunter. A gem for all Bloodborne fans. Please take a look at our carefully selected collaboration items that will increase your enlightenment. So, of course, when Sony even lets the letter B come out of their mouth, everyone goes, Bloodborne 2? Bloodborne Remake? Bloodborne Remaster? But seemingly out of nowhere, in the middle of 2024, there is Bloodborne merchandise coming out from Sony. So it immediately makes everyone wonder, okay, are they prepping for a remaster? Are they prepping for a sequel, for a remake? And, you know, I personally think it's a bit odd that this would happen right now without anything in the Bloodborne franchise. But at the same time, it does seem hard to believe that that's coming when it hasn't come for so long. But then in another sense, it's like you would sell gangbusters if you put something out Bloodborne related. So while I want to say, here's what I think would I don't think we'd get a Bloodborne sequel, because I don't think From Software would do it. And I don't know who they would want as a different studio to make it for them at Sony. So I don't think we get a sequel. I don't think we get a remake, because this game's beautiful. And I know it's 9 years old, but like, this game doesn't need a remake. Now, I know Last of Us got it, and potentially Horizon Zero Dawn's getting it, which just blows my mind. But I don't think this game needs a remake. So the best case I would see is a PS5 native version of Bloodborne coming, which would be super exciting. You know, 60 frames, maybe 120 frames, 4K. I could potentially see that being possible. But if you ask me to draw my name, like put my money where my mouth is, I'm going to say we're not getting anything game-wise for Bloodborne. But this is exciting to see, and the hopes are there a little bit. I would love it. Joe, I want to know your opinion on this, and also, would you be excited for a Bloodborne remaster, remake? Would you buy it? Would you play it? Over to you.
Is it exciting to see? It's just
it's exciting to see if something actually came from it. Yeah.
So you don't want your black leather, boots and sticky gloves and charm.
if somebody gave it to me, maybe I'd try it on, but I'm probably not going to buy it. I don't even want to know what the prices are on the stuff.
You think you'd look good in those boots?
No, I don't think I look good in any of this. I'd probably just look more like an incel basement dweller than I already do.
Yeah, it's gonna be cheap crap as well. That's the thing. Yeah. What was your question? Sorry.
Do you think this means anything for a game release of any type? And would you buy it? Would you play it?
Yes, I would. Because one of the biggest problems I have with Bloodborne, I've only completed it once, is just the frame rate and everything. It's just so hard to get into, like, to play. Like, if you, like, so when you play Bloodborne, it's not just the frame rate, it's the frame pacing. Like, there's something about that game where it's just weirdly, ugh. Like, it's like molasses, the way it plays. And, like, once you get into it, it's fine. You get used to it. Like, I'm not going to pretend it isn't. But if you go away from it and then you want to play, like, another playthrough, not immediately, like, you get used to that. Yeah, you get it every time. Like, you move to 60 frames or higher, like I do on PC, like, it's like, oh my fucking God, like, what the shit is going on here? So yeah, dude, like, I mean, it's one of those where, like, what are they charging for it? You know, like, if they come out with a remaster or even a remake or whatever, a remake is like, again, it's like, is it actually a remake? Like, you'll start questions of having, like, harkening back to, like, The Last of Us Part 1 questions. Like, is it truly a remake? And it's like, it is, but it's barely noticeable. And, like,
what if Blue Point did Bloodborne the same way they did Demon Souls, though?
Yeah, but, like,
mind-blowing.
Is it going to be that different in terms of style at that point? Like, Demon Souls is...
Well, I mean, I would say Demon Souls remake to the original Demon Souls feel quite different.
Oh, yeah, but, like, you've got that time jump, though. I mean, I guess with the thing with Demon Souls remake is the weight of everything, I feel like. That's what sets it apart from other Souls games, in my opinion, because everything in other Souls games feels, for its positive, feels a bit floaty, feels, like, very lucid and fluid. Demon Souls doesn't necessarily. Like, you can be... It is fluid, like, it's not like there's a control problem, but it's very weighty, and you can feel it when you have certain armor on and stuff like that, and you swing certain weapons and whatever. So yeah, I think, okay, yeah, I think so. I think a remake from Blue Point would be sick, but at the same time, I think you're still going to have questions of, is this going to be $70? Is this going to be, £60, £70?
Okay.
Like, but is it actually foreboding? Is it actually foreshadowing something coming out? I don't know. Because, like, PlayStation do this every so often with merchandise and stuff. They just kind of, like, bring out a new mug or a new t-shirt or whatever. Yeah. And, like, maybe they don't always they more pertain to, like, the ecosystem and the console. This just feels like they're milking oranges, because they're in the practice of doing that right now with the PC releases and everything, and they are milking the shit out of things, and that's been their MO since, like, Jim Ryan got in. So, and obviously he's gone now, but... I don't know. I'd love to see a remake. I'd love to see a port. I would play it. I need that 60 frames. I need, like, graphical settings. But I think the reason they don't do it is simply because I think they don't really... I think FromSoft have obviously got all the source code and everything with it, right? And I feel like it's at that point where they don't want to, like, pay FromSoft to come back to do it when they know, like, FromSoft are bigger than they've ever been. And I feel like they've probably had conversations behind the scenes. They've probably gone to FromSoft and said, hey, can we get, like, a 60 frames Bloodborne patch? And FromSoft have looked at it and gone, I don't really want to come back for that and, like, dedicate a... Because you got to appreciate, like, FromSoft are at a point where they are pumping out games like you have never seen before in their time. And they're always banging shit. Like, Elden Ring. What was it, 2021? 2022?
2022, yeah.
And then Armored Core 6 the year after. Like, dude, and, like, anyone that's played Armored Core here, like, listen to this, it's fucking fire. Like, it is at the quality.
You love this game.
Yeah, it's just more linear than Elden Ring. Obviously, it's not as big and not as impressive and not as industry defining, but from a quality level, Armored Core 6 is, like, the best in the series. And they put it out a year after. And it's like, so do you really think, like, from a monetary perspective, from a business standpoint, like, Hidetaka Miyazaki wants to come back and be like, yeah, okay, we'll port a game and, like, dedicate a decent portion of our team to get that to 60 frames. I don't think they want to do it. And I also don't think that Sony want to spare an internal team to work on another game that isn't theirs, because they've had... Like, this is the thing. They've had issues in the past where they've tried to put, like, Ben Studio on the Uncharted remake, and Ben Studio have, like... There were, like, murmurings and pretty much nigh on confirmed reports after the Days Gone 2 cancellation that they didn't want to do it, and they hated it. They felt like they were getting penalized for for basically putting out a worse product.
Be someone else's bitch, kind of.
Yeah, be their bitch. So I think PlayStation are at a point where they're kind of like scared of putting a studio on that. So yeah, I'm gonna say no.
I think it goes to what you said. I wouldn't be surprised if, and this might be way out of pocket, but I feel like there's a good chance that Elden Ring's DLC will make more money than Bloodborne. Like,
yes,
just the DLC.
I mean, it's third party for one. Like, come on. And it's
like, I'm talking lifetime Bloodborne. It's less money from Bloodborne than just this expansion pack.
Yeah, dude.
For Elden Ring.
Elden Ring is just it, bro. I'm sorry, but like, it's the shit, and it'll continue to be the shit as long as they milk that in.
I think you made some really good points. I think it just, From Software, like, even though they were killing it when Bloodborne came out, they've just excelled to such a higher level that they don't have time for that, and Sony's got plenty of other things going on, and Bloodborne's still playable. It's just... So just like, no, we're just not doing it right now.
Honestly, like FromSoft, like for my money, they are the most innovative third-party studio right now. Like I think Capcom, from a consistency standpoint, I don't know, because like Capcom released more games than FromSoft, but I think that like they're a bigger company for one, but I think like for their money, FromSoft, they are the best third-party developers right now, or at least the most impactful.
They're amazing, dude.
Like the most impactful, and they are on a run like no other studio has ever done. Like even like my favorites, like Kojima Productions, fucking Santa Monica Studio, Naughty Dog. Like they are, in terms of what the impact is, like FromSoft is unreal. And if they continue going this way for 10 years, like expect them to be a huge third-party asset and a potential purchase for Sony/Microsoft, if Microsoft are even still around by then. Going forward, because who would not want a studio like that underneath them?
Yeah, they're one of those, like, how can you not have them in your top? Of course, unless you don't enjoy their type of games.
If you don't enjoy their type
how can this not be one of your favorite developers?
Objectively, right? Yeah.
They're fire, dude. All right, get into our last story. So today, a new indie title released that is popping off everywhere. It's a PlayStation 5, PC, and Switch game. Interesting thing about this indie title is that it comes as the first game that is published by the video game YouTuber Donkey. He started his own publishing company, and this is the first game released under his own publishing company, and it's coming out to killer scores. People are loving it. The game is called Animal Well, and I'm going to read a couple excerpts from a couple different places with their scores and just kind of talk about how awesome of a release this is, kind of unexpected. This comes from Game Informer. It says, teeming with life, secrets, and charm, that surprise and delight, Animal Well held my full, undivided attention. Even in its most trying moments, it left a mark of endearment on me thanks to its absorbing soundscape, distinct yet familiar pixel-based art style, and flexible mold-breaking approach to exploration. 9 out of 10. Eurogamer. I often fall in love with games, but Animal Well is slightly different. I'm astonished by it. Astonished by the ease with which it presents its ideas, the joy these ideas bring, and the sheer range of magical stuff it includes, all clipped together in such a satisfying manner. And fittingly, for a game about wells, I am astonished by how deep it all goes. 5 out of 5 stars. IGN. Animal Well is a veritable feast of brain teasers that's far more concerned with twisting your mind into knots than any grueling platform challenges.
Ooh.
It's lovely to look at thanks to gorgeous pixel art and dynamic lighting, and an excellent use of haptics and well-tuned physics systems make it fun to touch, too. Animal Well's steadily unlocked toy box of tools thoroughly rewards play, curiosity, and experimentation for hours upon hours after the credits roll. Though the late-game maze of mid-mind teasers might grate once in a while if you're reluctant to ask for help, the massive onion of Animal Well's secrets remain dense, clever, and thrilling even when you've peeled back as many layers as you think you possibly can, and then peeled a few more beyond that. 9 out of 10. So I actually watched a few videos on this.
Mm-hmm.
This game, you play as a blob, traveling through these animal wells. It's a Metroidvania, but it's interesting in that it has no combat at all, and the platforming is just kind of there as a basic thing. There's no challenge to the platforming. So it's just like, there's so many secrets hidden and so many wild things you can do in each room that you might not even expect you could do until you just discover it in natural gameplay. But it doesn't fixate on, because like I said, there's no combat. The platform it doesn't fixate on. It's very much this labyrinthian kind of go everywhere discovery, find things you can do. Very much a game right up your alley if you are a Metroidvania fan.
Okay.
I myself am not, so this game probably wouldn't appeal to me, but it's beautiful. It has this like very vibrant pixelated art with like neon kind of dynamic lighting. Everything we're hearing about this game is amazing. I'm sure it's going to be at the Game Awards for like best indie title of the year. Joe, what are your thoughts on Animal Well?
Yeah, dude. I mean, first of all, it looks gorgeous. One thing that always just astounds me with indie games is like the art style, direction, and how people can put this together. And in the amount of animation, the amount of drawing, the level designing and stuff is just immaculate. I mean, like, imagine, like, you got to appreciate, imagine having to design, like, if you look at this game, like screen grabs right now or some footage while you're listening to this, like, imagine having to design like unique levels and structures for every course of these games. Like, imagine the creativity that has to go into that, like how you design each jumping section and everything, you know, like where you put the plants, like where you put the sort of decoration and stuff. It's just it's awe-inspiring.
Insane amount of work.
Yeah, it's an insane amount of work, and you got to appreciate, like, this stuff is probably like you're looking at maybe dozen people making this, maybe two dozen. I don't know the exact number, but like this
the developer is called Shared Memory.
Do we have a number on the amount of employees or anything, or no?
I have no idea.
Yeah, so, but like, you're looking at it as a very small studio, you know, you probably might not even be over 50 people, and this is what they're making, and it's absolutely incredible. You know, indie games are glorious right now, and they have every right to be. And yeah, this game looks absolutely awesome. The fact that it's like it's from Donkey's publishing team. This is the thing. Donkey has always been a character that I've respected him anyways, because he's very comedic, and that's where like his bread and butter is, as everyone that knows him from his League of Legends days and stuff. But he's also very outspoken, and I feel like, even though like sometimes the things he says is like, the way he says it is weird and off base potentially, like he got banned in League once for like BMing someone. He's oftentimes on base with the principle behind the words he says. And the thing with it is, like, to have that person run a publishing company for a game, I think it kind of, not to sensationalize him as like a celebrity or anything, but he is potentially placing his impact in an area that allows this game to represent what gamers truly want, because he is a reviewer that doesn't give you bullshit when he reviews his games. Like, he might lean into the comedy side of things and not like go into the nuance.
But the point is there.
The point is there, and it's great stuff. And so I feel like this kind of bleeds into this game in its own unique way, in the sense that it's firing on all cylinders when it comes to like the mechanics. It's unique, just like Donkey is in many ways to his content creation endeavors. And ultimately, it's a fucking fire game. And obviously, we haven't played it or anything, but the fact that it's getting 9s and 10s out of 10. Is this the first game they've released, Brian?
Yeah, it's the first one.
Their first game they've released, and it's getting 9s and 10s critical. Like, critical acclaim is like underselling it.
I saw Jason Schreier on Twitter. He quoted himself because 2 years ago, Jason Schreier, when it was announced that Donkey was going to do a publishing team, Jason Schreier was dunking on him. Like, why would you start this? You don't have the experience.
Yeah.
And he tweeted himself today, and he was like, well, I guess it worked.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, that's good of Jason to like eat his words and stuff.
He did, yeah. Probably because he knew it would come from someone else if he didn't get ahead of it himself. But do you like Metroidvanias, Joe? Is this something you'd play?
I mean, like, when I came into the industry, Metroidvanias were kind of like out of the question in many ways, because obviously that was like the sort of 8-bit, 16-bit era and stuff like that, you know, with Metroid Prime. But or Super Metroid, sorry, not Metroid Prime. But I like Metroidvania. Like, Dead Cells is a Metroidvania, right? I would say, like, it's, or a soft Metroidvania. Yeah, like, I completed that. That was a great time. I liked Control. That has Metroidvania elements to it. You know, I mean, even like Dark Souls, right? Like, Dark Souls has Metroidvania elements to it. I know, like, the word is kind of getting truncated in many ways and diluted down by people. Just like when people say, I don't know, they say, it's Sony's Dark Souls, or it's Xbox's Dark Souls, or it's this studio's Dark Souls. It, like, you kind of dilute that meaning of that word, and it becomes useless, like the word literally nowadays, or cringe. But I like Control. Dark Souls like has those elements of, like, you know, returning to old places through like previously locked doors and stuff from one side. One thing that is surprising to me is like how it seems that this game, instead of, like you said, focuses on the combat, and it doesn't necessarily focus much on the platforming. One thing I like about it is it focuses more on like the puzzle stuff, and like it seems to be like focusing more on kind of figuring out where you need to go and like contextualizing like the design elements of the game and stuff like that, and like bending your mind to understand where this, like how to get through this game, rather than like relying purely on how would you say kind of, what's the word, like mechanical depth, mechanical prowess.
Yeah,
like a lot of us do.
Prowess is, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And instead relying on that mental prowess to get through. And it's kind of, I don't know if it's right to say this, but it kind of reminds me of like a platform indie 8-bit version or whatever of The Witness, which is one of my favorite games of all time. Which is a puzzle game where you have to pretty much recontextualize how you think about things. Like my colleague at work, right? Like he loves The Witness too. He was struggling on his puzzle on The Witness. He went away. He went to bed. He dreamt the puzzle. He dreamt how to figure it out. He came back and he figured it out. He did it based on the dream. Like, how crazy
I think
is that?
somebody said something about that with Animal Well in one of these reviews. Dead serious.
That's wild, dude. So this, I mean, if I had more time, I'd be jumping into this day one knowing that.
Okay, that's what I was basically, because I figured you weren't going to play it because of you have a lot going on, you have a lot of games, but like if you didn't have anything going on, you didn't have games currently ready to play, like is this one you'd pick up? Sounds like you would.
Yeah, 100%. That's awesome.
Awesome, dude. Awesome, dude. Great time for indies. I think like 3 other indies came out today, but this is the one that's really popping off right now. So I thought we would mention it here before, it really hits everywhere. And this is the game that everyone's talking about. Say, hey, we were aware of it when it came out. So
yeah, banging, dude.
That is it for today's news. So this next segment, I'm kind of excited for this one because it's more laid back and it's just pretty much simple. What are you playing? What are you playing right now, Joe? I'll let you go first. What's been on the old keyboard?
The keyboard. Okay, so on the keyboard there is Red Dead Redemption 2 modded.
Nice.
And then on the pad, on the old PlayStation pad, the DualSense, I'm playing Jedi Survivor, but I have just recently, like, I haven't, this is the thing, I'm technically playing Jedi Survivor, but I haven't played it since I platinumed Resident Evil 4 Remake. So technically, I'm still playing Resident Evil 4 Remake, if that makes sense.
Okay. See, that's funny. I said it on the keyboard. I'm like, I'm so used to like Sony's games now coming to PC that I'm just like, and the thing is too, you play your PlayStation and your PC at the same spot. Yep. So I was just like, that's where my head was at, but it's so are you mostly been playing Red Dead Redemption 2 modded recently then? Because you're done with Resident Evil 4 as I understand it.
Yes, I'm done with Resident Evil 4. Like it's over for Leon. He's ran the gauntlet 7 or 8 times.
That's crazy, dude. Talk to me a little bit more about how you feel about that game, Resident Evil 4 Remake.
I mean, what is there not to say about that game? Like, it's the game, like the combat is perfection. The way, just the little things, okay, since Resident Evil 2, like the way the guns recoil is so satisfying. The animations are satisfying. The story is brilliant. The environments are like, they have new elements of the old game, but they also pay so much homage to the old game. Like, it's a remake and a new game all in itself without trying to be a new game in many ways, because it's that well designed and that well crafted. And it's just got like nuances, like Ashley being a better character than ever before, not as annoying. Their like relationship bonding is so much better. I appreciate the fact that there aren't as many corny lines in this game as opposed to before.
But there are still some to keep that there.
Yeah, I mean, like, where's everybody going? Bingo, like
bingo.
Yeah. Like it's just great, dude. I mean, there's things that from the old game I like more. So like, this game has a lot of James Bondness about it, where the villains go off screen for a long time and then turn back up. And that doesn't work as well in Resident Evil sense or as in game sense as it does in like James Bondy or movie sense in many ways, because I don't know. I feel like if you're playing the game, you kind of got to see these oppositions you're fighting against a lot. Otherwise, it just feels like you're body bagging everyone. You're just blasting everyone. And you start to lose sight of what you're doing. And like Sadler and what's his name? Chrysler? What's the army dude's name?
No, it's not Chrysler. It's not Kessler. It's
what's his name?
Oh, I would have known it if you hadn't have already said a name. Kurt. Man,
think on
It's
it anyway.
right there.
But
Yeah.
like, what's the little small guy's name as well? Salvatore? No,
Salazar?
Salazar. Yeah, Salvatore's the doctor.
Yeah.
I think the chainsaw guy. But like, they only come in every so often, and like in the old game, you'd have like the radio that would pop up and stuff where they like taunt you and talk shit to you, and that's kind of like reserved for the smaller sections where you see them across the room and stuff, and then they run away. But yeah, dude, it's great. I mean, aside from the base game itself, like
Krauser.
Krauser,
I looked it up.
Krauser. Yeah. But aside from the base game itself, like obviously these are all things that you'll pick up on as you play that I've just said. But as someone who's like platinum running it, the way this game does like replayability is fucking fire, because like it in the new game plus stuff, you keep all your weapons going through and all your items, and that's really fucking dope. Like I love that. But then like to get like the platinum, it kind of forces you. You get to a point where it's like, right, you got to get an S plus rank now, and it's like, okay, I'll get that on the new game plus, and it's like, no, you've played 4 new game plus playthroughs up until this point. You should be good enough now. Time to like go back, like blank slate it, new game on the hardest difficulty. Good luck. And the thing is, right, is you've got to like do this thing where to get an S plus rank on new game, not new game plus, on new game, you have to beat the game in under 5.5 hours, right? Which isn't a lot, but you got to appreciate when you play on like professional difficulty, which is the hardest, or even hardcore, like enemies take way more damage. They do way more damage to you. Resources are more scarce. And you're also thinking about the time while you're doing this. So a lot of the time you end up like running past enemies. You find like optional ways to navigate around them. You start to like micromanage your inventory at an obscene level. You maneuver like you've never maneuvered before. Like micro pacing. Like even like when I walk upstairs, when I play Resident Evil 4 Remake to get fastest times, I aim. Like I keep aiming to like get upstairs faster and stuff. It's like genuine speedrunning tactics to get faster and to not slip into like slower animations. But yeah, dude, like from the top level, which is the base game, everyone plays that stuff, fucking fire, to the bottom level, like the more intricate stuff like I've been doing
all the way through.
Further, it is the most consistent, objective 10 out of 10 game I can give. And in all honesty, like I would probably subjectively give it a 10 out of 10 as well. I used to think it was a 9. It's just that it doesn't fit into my top 50 just because it's not a game that like pulls on your heartstrings or the narrative like does anything for you necessarily.
Yeah.
It's more about the gameplay
like
and the
action
overall
movie.
experience. Yeah. And that's fine. It's definitely on my top 75 though. So
yeah, no, I pretty much agree with everything you said. It was one of those games where I was just like, how could it ever live up to what it's supposed to be? It's supposed to be as good as the original, which is one of the greatest games of all time, but it's also supposed to be like modernized. And I played through it and I'm like, I feel like there's a place to play the original and play this one. Like I wouldn't say it replaces the original, but there's a very real conversation there about how this is just better than the original. Yeah. Like it's just the gameplay is so refined. It's so gamified and in such a brilliant way. It's so smooth. All the things they changed, like the Luis's character, you didn't even mention him.
Yeah, he's better.
He's done so much better. Ashley's done better. Several of the villains are done better. I think I like Salazar better in the original, but they made him a little more serious in this one. But so good, and I think that go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
I was also going to say Ada. Like people complained about Ada's voice acting.
I love her, dude.
Like I don't even, bro. Like away from all that, obviously I haven't played it at release. Like, I literally just beat the game or whatever, pretty much. But like as of a month ago, or a couple of weeks, like. Ada's acting for me is fine. Like I think it works really good in context because even though it's not like on the level of like she's not got that assonance and the sort of inflection in her voice that the original Ada has in Resident Evil 4. Obviously, she's not playful and stuff, but I kind of like it because this Ada, in many ways, to me, is like kind of hiding deep-rooted feelings like for Leon, and like that's the way I see it. Like she's clearly like attached to him still, and she cares for him massively. That's why she's helping him. But ultimately, like she is scared that she's gonna fuck up and like fall too deep. Kind of how she does in 2, to an extent. But obviously, she then betrays him. Obviously, the undermining thing is she's got ulterior motives. But yeah, dude, I think Ada's great. That's a great. The controversy is too much for me. Like, I don't think it was on
I know
point
it sucks because like that's what sucks is because like this voice actress got like thrown under the bus and then ran over and backed over 49 times because it was like, oh yeah, this game's great, but obviously Ada's voice actress is terrible. And I'm like, I don't think that's the case at all. Like, first of all, I did really like it, and I can see why someone would think it's terrible because of like what the type of delivery was, like what it was going for. But like to me, it very much seems like the producer said, like, hired her as a voice actress and said, this is our vision for the character. This is how we want her to come across and be presented. And I think she did an amazing job presenting that. And she's also like racially the same as the character this time, which I think is also awesome. And it's that's not why she's good. She's just also very good. I loved her performance. I liked the original performance as well, but I actually do like this one better.
Yeah.
I think the performances across the board, the motion capture, the gameplay, the way it faithfully recreates the original. To me, it was like, I still don't know how I feel about remakes of old games being up for Game of the Year at the Game Awards, because this game was up for that, and I'm like, I just don't know, because I'm like, why don't we celebrate the new experiences we got this year rather than like retreads of old ones? But this was like, this was the best video game I played in 2023. My game of the year was Final Fantasy 16, just because I have more of an attachment to that.
Sure.
But Final Fantasy 16 was nowhere near as good as this game. I'm sure Baldur's Gate 3 was a higher achievement than what Resident Evil 4 was. But as far as the games I played, and as far as like it being a 10/10 experience, this was one of the best games of 2023, and just amazing that they could pull it off. I love this game.
I gave this game a 10 out of 10, right? As you just heard. I haven't even beat or purchased the DLC yet. So that's clearly going to make it like an 11 out of 10.
It's easily makes it better. Yeah. What about, so tell us, like, what you said you're also playing Red Dead Redemption 2 modded.
Yeah.
What kind of like mods, like how does that change the regular experience with your playing?
Red Dead Redemption 2 is an interesting game because like I have, I've said this before again, but like Red Dead Redemption 2 is a game that is a game of two halves, two sides of the same coin, in the sense that one side is like very linear, like a lot of GTA games and stuff in the main mission structure. And you have very little freedom when it comes to what you can do in terms of, like, I don't know, sort of hiding stagecoaches and stuff like that and all that. Like, you have to go to a specific place, and there's functions in the game to like turn your mini map off and potentially be more immersive sim and read road signs and stuff like that. And it doesn't really matter when you're on main missions because the game wants you to do certain things. If you don't sneak at the right time, the fucking, you know, sneak in, the mission ends and stuff like that. You know, Arthur is spotted or whatever. But then there's the other side, which is like sort of your more immersive sim stuff, which is your free roam. And in many ways, like that part of the game is like my favorite part because it allows you to live this like big, beautiful cowboy fantasy, like out of Hollywood movies, you know, like you're Arthur Morgan, this like big, brutish, ignorant character that is like basically a perfect like match for a Clint Eastwood or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like he works perfectly in that situation, and you can customize him to like the ends of the world when it comes to customization, your clothing, haircuts, trimming your beard, you know, customize your guns, etc., etc. And basically, my mods, even though they haven't touched the main story stuff, because you really can't, because I mean, like, it's the main story stuff. Like, how are you gonna mod that? But my mods are essentially like refining and changing elements of the open world. So, for instance, like it makes it more hardcore when it comes to the sort of damage you take with the damage overhaul mod. It also like, you can't reload automatically, so if you like put your weapons away and you like fire your last round in your 6-shooter, you've got to like, and then you switch to like the gun you've just used, it's like, oh shit, like that needs to be reloaded. There are jobs now, like I can literally have a 9-to-5 job if I want to and earn money that way. There are stagecoach robberies, there are bounties, like, because the thing is, in Red Dead Redemption 2, you hit a certain point early on in the story where you can take on bounties. But the only problem is there's only a set amount of bounties in the campaign. Whereas in like the online, there's unlimited. So essentially what a lot of my mods do is they bring in all the online content through script.
Online elements to the single player?
To the single player. To make, because that's the thing with Red Dead Online. It's like, it's a really good foundational platform piece for like that, like I said, that big, beautiful cowboy fantasy. But the problem with the thing is they've kind of got two opposite problems. Red Dead Redemption 2's campaign is kind of got not enough for you to do in the free roam in many ways, even though it does, let's be honest. But like, as someone who wants to, like
really explore it
and dive in, it doesn't have enough content for like hundreds and hundreds of hours in many ways. But then the online portion doesn't have the campaign stuff and the narrative driven stuff and the more tangible, like, I care about this game. It goes down as like my favorite game of all time. So basically it just combines them into this nice single player type approach, like where you can, I don't know, duel anyone at any time. Like you can challenge someone to a duel at high noon, and like just a random guy on the street, like if they say something wrong to you. I don't know, like consistent time flow. Here's another thing, like the game has short night times but like really long daytimes for the sake of gameplay, and like because people don't want to spend all time at nighttime. But I've made it so it's equal. So it's a 24-hour clock. I've also made it so there are random encounters in the world, so like more random encounters. So like you'll find certain gang hideouts that are never there and before. What else? There's another really big one. Oh, seasons. Seasons is huge. So like in Red Dead, the more north you go, the more cold it gets, the more snowy it gets, the more south, the more boggy and swampy it gets, right? Makes sense. In this, though, seasons come to all places in this mod. So, like, the north can be, like, warm as shit sometimes. The south side, in, like, the bogs in Louisiana, like, style place, what's it called? Saint Denis and stuff like that. Like, southeast of the map, where, like, crocodiles, alligators are. Like, you will find snow, where it's never in the base game. So it like completely changes like how, and this is the thing, right? That changes how you approach like combat. That changes how you approach like keeping your player alive, because you can't wear thin clothing. You can't wear no clothing when it's fucking, freezing cold. You gotta like wrap up because your health cores will drain and stuff like that, which will make you more susceptible to damage and stuff like that. So it's a lot of like little changes to the point of like tying people up with a hog tie to the floor to a pole that you could never do in the game before. What's another thing? Dogs.
It seems like it naturally makes the game better in a very natural way.
Dude, all of it is crazy. Like it's rough around the edges for sure, no doubt. Like because it's scripts. Like if the scripts go outdated, because every time they update the framework and stuff when they make an online double XP event for whatever reason, it like breaks my mods, so I have to like remod it. But at the same time, like once it's working, it's so cool. Like, I love it because I'm barely touching the main story, and I've always like, as someone who's a camper and likes to sit in quiet areas, one thing I love about Red Dead Redemption 2's open world is it's like that. You can camp anywhere you want. You can sit down, relax, and just like cook some meat, fish, hunt, ride your horse. Sometimes like I'll just trot with my horse or walk all the way to town. I won't like sprint like most people do from one mission to the other. I'll just chill and listen to the sounds and stuff because it's so good.
You just get to live in the world,
Yeah. So, yeah, that's Red Dead for me. I'm like really early on it though, so like I'm just taking.
Is that a mod you think a lot of people are using, or more like a smaller amount of people?
Which one?
Well, I guess all those mods combined, is that something do you think the Red Dead Redemption community is using a lot? Or
yeah, they're popular. They're really, really popular. Like that's how I found them. I mean, like even I've got bank robberies and stuff. Because like in the game, you can only rob banks at certain points in the story, like linear missions. Like this, this allows me to rob banks. I've got not to go on too much longer because I'm just listing them off at this point because I'm so like it's so cool. But all interiors are openable now in my world. Like every building is open.
That's neat. That's neat.
That's crazy, right?
Helps immerse you in the world a lot.
Yeah. You can buy houses and property.
Nice.
It's wild, dude. Like,
takes me back to the Fable days, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, that's cool. It's such a cool ass game.
That's another 10-10 game for you, right?
Yeah, 10 out of 10, top 50. I think it's in the teens of my top 50. It's so good.
That's awesome, dude. That's awesome.
What about you?
Yeah, so for me, I've started. I haven't purchased Stellar Blade yet because I'm not sure that it's a game I want to purchase. But after playing the demo yesterday, I do feel like I'm very interested in completing it. I mean, do I want to spend the full 70 or not? I think it's worth it. I may do it if I get some encouragement. I might just go ahead and do it. But it's actually really surprising me. So much of the conversation has been around the main character Eve and how sexy she is and the jiggle physics that I think people myself at least, just as a passive viewer of all of it, I'm just like, I just begin to not think of anything further than that.
Yeah.
And I start playing it and I'm just like, this has amazing combat and production values, and the world like story setup is really neat.
Yep.
The music already seems god tier. The bosses are amazing. It's got like a mix between like Final Fantasy and Souls and Nier. And I'm really into it, so I definitely want to check that out further. Thinking about picking it up. I think it'd be really awesome to do that and give my impressions and my thoughts on it. Yeah. Is that a game that, once again, kind of like Animal, is that a game that if like you had time, you'd play it?
Yeah. It looks badass, dude. The hack and slash looks good. Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of those fast hack and slashy games like Metal Gear Rising, Revengeance, and Ninja Gaiden and stuff. So,
yeah, dude, it seems really dope. Other than that, I've been playing through Fallout 4, going back into it again because of the show.
Not too hot,
Fallout
right?
4. What's that?
Not too hot on it?
No, well, I'm not too hot on it. I got a weird, like, I've got a pretty good opinion on it, I feel like, at this point. But I played it at launch, was so excited for it back in 2015. And I beat it. And when I got done beating it, I was like, that was good, but a little disappointing and not as good as prior Fallouts. And I never played it again. 9 years passed by, I never played it again. Of course, the Fallout TV show comes out, gets me super in the mood, makes me want to play Fallout 3, but 3 is the one that I keep replaying over and over again. So I kind of force myself. I'm like, let's give Fallout 4 a chance. It's the most modern one. Give it another shot. So playing it again, very hard to get myself back in the mood to play it again because it's not my favorite Fallout, and I just didn't feel the interest for a while, and I was kind of down on it. But then as I started to get questing, started to get used to the world, the Commonwealth, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm kind of back into this Bethesda feel. I like this, really enjoying it, and obviously I'm still playing it, still got lots more content to do, but I just finished the main story as kind of to get myself into it again, and the positive, the negative is I still feel the same way about the game as I did 9 years ago. I have the same opinions on its shortcomings and on its pros. I think the writing's not as good. The voice protagonist isn't as good. There's not as much dialogue options. The main story with the Institute is pretty weak to me. Yeah. But the pro is I have a deeper appreciation for the game now. I think I like it more. I enjoy it more, and I really, really love the Commonwealth. And I think part of that is just coming off of Starfield, where I felt like it was such a huge negative to not have that central, open, seamless world. And just not getting that in a Bethesda game with Starfield made me appreciate it so much more here. So I love the Commonwealth. Funny thing is that, but to give Starfield credit, is so much of the writing and the dialogue and the quests are worse here. So TLDR on that is playing Fallout 4, I gave it an 8 out of 10 back in 2015. I give it an 8 out of 10 now. I feel the same way about it, but I appreciate it more. Just beating the main story, I took a different path that I hadn't done before. I thought that was really interesting.
Which one?
This time, skip ahead 30 seconds if you don't want spoilers. It's been 9 years, Fallout 4. But I went ahead and helped my son all the way through.
Okay.
The first time I was like, I didn't know this is who you would be. Die. I want you and all your people to die. But this time I helped him all the way through.
Savage, dude.
I like the ending better. I like the story better. I never got to see Liberty Prime in the first playthrough, which is so it's crazy. I got to see that now, which is cool. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I'm going through Far Harbor now, the DLC I've never played, which everyone says Far Harbor's the best. Yeah, it's a great game. Bethesda should be proud of it. They it's not as good as some of their other games. They made some poor decisions here and there, I think, but they should be proud of it. It's great. It's a great place for fans of the show to jump in for a more modern release. You got the new update with 60 frames on console, which is what I'm playing. So, I really enjoy it. And I would encourage anyone. I think it's very interesting. Like, I feel like I could write a 20-page paper. Just have someone sit down and play Fallout 4 and then play Starfield. Yeah. And just like do a paper on like, okay, this developer made both these games. They're similar, but there's many massive differences between them, pros and cons to both. And like seeing where one succeeds and where one falters. Yeah. And then just go back and play Skyrim and realize that Skyrim had it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
which is so I'm in an interesting spot where I think I'm getting that fun like retro Bethesda fix from a game I've already played, but then I'm also experiencing something new with Stellar Blade. So I'm excited to.
How many times have you? Yeah, how many times have you played New Vegas? Like
once,
just
one time.
So how many times have you played Fallout 3? Because I know that's your favorite, right?
Probably 4 times.
Oh wow! So then this is your second time playing Fallout 4. So
yeah. So I think next I would, if I go next, I need to go into New Vegas again.
Yeah.
I think.
You like that one?
New Vegas?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like New Vegas. I think it just the world building is nowhere near as good.
Okay.
In that as like Bethesda's, like the Commonwealth and what is it, Capital Wasteland are both cooler to me than New Vegas.
Yeah.
But great riding in New Vegas, and obviously you can aim down sights, which you couldn't do in Fallout 3, which is huge.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd like to go through New Vegas again. But yeah, right now I feel like in a good spot. I'm gonna play more Fallout 3. Potentially play through all of Stellar Blade if I can fully convince myself. And then, obviously not a PlayStation title, not yet, but Hellblade 2 is coming later in the month.
There we go, baby.
So,
what's my next game?
It's a good time.
I'm trying to think what my next game like upcoming is.
Are you not getting Hellblade 2?
I don't think I'll get it on launch. I will play it one day. But like I've just got so much in the pipeline. Like I'm honestly, I'm gonna return to Stalker after Jedi Survivor.
Okay. Yeah,
like,
you've been craving that.
Yeah, I've been craving that. I've been seeing Darren, like, shout out to Darren in the Discord, like, dude, like, that shit looks so fire. Like, I want to play more of it. Obviously, I played it before, but I just want to play it again. Oh, dude, I forgot. I've been playing Fallout 1.
Oh, nice. I really respect those games. I just don't know if they're for me, but...
Yeah, like, proper CRPG.
Do you like 1 or 2 better?
So, like, I played 2, I think, over a decade ago, if not a decade ago. I don't know, like, in my early teens. And like same with Fallout 1. So it's been so long, and I remember preferring Fallout 2 from a gameplay standpoint, and that's what elevated it higher than Fallout 1 on my top 50. But I'm not got to Fallout 2, but the more I see played of Fallout 2, and the more I see like people talk about Fallout 2, the more I kind of appreciate Fallout 1 more retrospectively, and the more I'm appreciating that simplistic design that it has, and how not condensed it is, because it's not a condensed game. I mean, it's 20 to 30 hours to beat, like, mainline.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like, the side quests in the game, but it's mainly just, like, you do the story or whatever. But, yeah, dude, I don't know. Like, the simplicity of Fallout 1, the vibe of it is unreal. There's something about that game that is just special, Fallout 1, really.
Dude, 1998, I'm pretty sure that was a 1998 release. That year was fire. That was Fallout 1, StarCraft, Ocarina of Time,
Metal Gear
Half-Life.
Solid, I think, as well.
Metal Gear Solid, dude, what a fire. 98's one of the GOATs.
98 along 2007, 2023 as well. Like, some of the best games, dude. I'd even put 2018 up there in many ways, because you had, like, God of War and Spider-Man at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
Oh, there's a lot of good years.
Yeah. Dude.
I would definitely have a list. That's the thing. So we have so many games, old and new. It's like, that's why we see something like Animal Well or Stellar Blade. It's like, can we get to that? You know what I mean?
Dude, I'd love to play so many games. It's just like, I just don't want to sacrifice my other stuff in my life, you know? Like, balance.
No, other stuff's more important.
Too much of the good stuff is bad stuff, guys. You need to have that balance, you know? So
it's just like doing this podcast. Like, I could have spent this last 2.5 hours playing Stellar Blade.
Yep.
And that would have been fun, but I'm like, I just love creating the content, you know? This does different things for my brain, obviously.
Yep. There we go.
Yeah, last topic, Joe, before we get out of here for our first episode of Critical Frames. It's a two-sided topic. PlayStation hardware. The first one, I'll have more to say than you, but I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on it. And then the second thing we'll both pop off on. But PlayStation Portal, I've been looking for a place to talk about this for a while, because
yes, you have.
Obviously it's come out. It's been out for a while now, and it's not something people are really talking about much anymore. But I think it's such an interesting device, because when it was first announced, I was like, okay, it's not dedicated. And it looks, when I first saw it, at least, I was like, it looks like shit.
Yeah.
It looks like a PlayStation 5 DualSense.
Split.
The controller's cut in half, and then they put a Kindle in the center. Yeah. It's basically what it looks like. And I think that's more or less what they did. Exactly. And so I thought, okay, $200, it's not a dedicated device, so you have to, be connected to your PlayStation 5 and stream over the internet onto it. I'm like, who is this for? And then many months pass by, and one day my wife says, what's that? And I'm like, oh, it's PlayStation Portal. She's like, what's that? And I'm like, oh, it's like a Switch for your PlayStation, but there's no like built-in hardware on it. So you have to be streaming from your PlayStation 5 within your network. And she's like, oh, I'd love one of those. And I'm like, really? Oh,
wow.
Okay. I guess that's who it appeals to. So then, because my wife doesn't often express that she wants something that costs a lot of money, I immediately start looking into it. And since I had my mind turned off to the PlayStation Portal because I didn't care about it, I turned my mind onto it and I realized it's sold out everywhere. Everyone wants this device. And if you go to like even like secondhand Facebook Marketplace, people are selling them for used for like 50% to 100% more than the retail cost. And so I started monitoring Best Buy and refreshing the page every day. It took me about a week, landed a PlayStation Portal, got one home, and dude, it's changed everything, man.
Wow.
We love this device. So
you only got one, right?
We got one, yeah.
Okay.
We got one.
You share it, yeah.
Yeah, what's so great about it is it's a couple things. One, we have fiber internet, and we directly connect the PS5 with an Ethernet cable to the fiber internet. We can go anywhere in our house and play any game off our PS5 on this beautiful 1080p LCD screen in bed, anywhere. And it runs without a hitch. I don't notice any input delay or anything. You're playing full scale. You could be playing Ragnarok. You can be playing Rebirth, Helldivers 2 on the PlayStation Portal. And it's just amazing to have just like, and it's so light because it doesn't have any native like hardware on it. So we just set it down on like a coffee table, pick it up, play full on PS5 console games anywhere in the house. No problem at all. And then where that's already cool, the next thing is what makes it so cool. We go out of town 4 hours away to my parents in Tennessee, and we're sitting on the couch hanging out with my parents. Just connect my Portal to their network, turns my PS5 on back home. I'm playing Rebirth off my Portal right on the couch at my parents' house, and it runs without a hitch, and it looks great. Yeah, dude, it's a phenomenal piece of kit for $200. I think it's great for $200. I mean, if you want to get a Steam Deck, $650. That's native, okay?
Yeah.
And then you have to buy the games on Steam if you're playing on PlayStation. Like you have to rebuy those games, obviously. So for $200, dude, it's got a great screen. You got the full DualSense with all the haptics, everything there. It's a great device, and I mean, I'm never in a situation where I'm not on Wi-Fi, anyways, right? Like I'm not the kind of person I'm not a 12-year-old kid. I'm not going to go to the playground and play my PlayStation Portal. So like, it doesn't matter that it's not native, right? But it's just made me and my wife really appreciate portable gaming even more because we have a kid. So a lot of times it's like we want the TV off because we don't want her watching the TV. So I'm sitting on the chair playing a game on the Portal while my daughter's playing next to me, or we go out of town and like we bring it with us, and it's just an awesome device. The only negatives I have with it is it's really clunky in the setup. So like you would think that you would just connect it to your PlayStation like a controller. And if I want to play, I sign into my account and I play. Or if Erica wants to play, she signs into her account and play. No, it functions like it connects to the PS5, but it's almost acts as a separate device than a DualSense would. So you have to sign into the device and sign into the console separately.
Right. Okay.
And unless you are signed into the device and the console as the same person at the same time, it's not going to connect and let you play. So let's say I left my PlayStation on and I'm signed in as me, and we take my Portal to my parents' house, and Erica tries to sign in as her, it ain't going to work. We should have fixed that before we got home, which is really clunky. Now, if we leave the PlayStation signed out here, then we can sign in as either her or I on the Portal, and then it'll just naturally also sign us in on the console. But there is a separate sign-in for the handheld device and for the console. And what we usually just do is we keep the Portal signed out, and then when we want to play it, we click sign in, and this is, like I said, it's really clunky. We just take our phone, and we scan the QR code, and the QR code just logs us into our personal accounts. So like if I'm playing Rebirth or something like that, I get done, I sign out of the Portal, I hand it to my wife. She clicks sign in, scans the QR code, it signs her in, she's playing. So once you know how to work it,
it's good.
It works pretty well, but it's just like, it's kind of a hard sell to people because it's like, okay, it's $200.
Yeah.
There's no native hardware, and
you
really need
internet.
to have you need to have decent internet. You need to have the PlayStation ideally hardwired, because if you're doing the PlayStation wireless, it's just then you have to do wireless from the router to the PlayStation and then wireless again to it screws the whole thing up.
Yep.
It's nowhere near as good. And then you need to understand how this, like, unless you're going to be the only person, like if you got it, Joe, you'd be the only person signed in, so you never mess up the signing.
Well, that won't bother me, that part, yeah.
Yeah, but for me and my wife signing in and out, we didn't know what to do, because we would sign in and out of the console and it would not work. And it's like, why is it not working? Oh, the device itself has its own sign-in.
Yeah. That's weird. That is weird. That is very strange. You think you just tether it, and then as soon as you boot the portal up, it'd boot the PlayStation up at the same time, and then you'd instantly, you get the icons. Like that's what you get hit with.
No, dude, it's literally, you got to tap the screen on the portal, and it has its own UI that's separate from the PlayStation UI, and you got to use that UI to sign out of that device specifically. It's crazy, dude.
That's weird.
It's hard, because, like, if I was to give the device, like, a score out of 5, I'm, like, really conflicted, because in a perfect use case where it's like me and my wife, we have a child, we have fiber internet, it's all connected and smooth, and we know how to use it.
Yeah.
For the price and what we can do with it, it feels kind of like 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to sell this to someone who doesn't have good internet, doesn't understand how to connect it off and on, doesn't connect to their PlayStation like tethered, it's a weird sell. So I'm more on the 3 to 4 out of 5 range on it.
Yeah.
Like, I think to be safe to a massive audience, I'd say this is a 3 out of 5 device, because it's like, it's not native, it's clunky.
Yeah.
Do you have, like, they don't tell you have to have your PS5 mandatory Ethernet connected, but you do.
Right, okay.
So I'm going to go 3 out of 5 on it. But for me and my wife, it's like a 5 out of 5. It's what's made me consider getting a Steam Deck, because I love that, like, console experience portably. Because I know the Switch is kind of that, but, like, now 7 years removed, it's like, that's not really a console experience. It's a very, very watered down experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, like, Joe, based on what you've seen and what I've said, like, I know you don't play games in your hand, you don't like it, you never buy the Portal, but has what I said, does that make you seem like...
So here's the thing.
Does it make the device sound more compelling or worse?
So when portable sort of consoles come out or whatever, portable handhelds come out, I always like have like this inclination, this like ADD trait or OCD trait or whatever. I'm like, I've got to get that. That's cool as shit. Like the new shiny, I feel like everyone has that to a certain extent. But then every time I buy one, I always feel like I've just wasted my time and money with it, right? Like I have the Switch over there, and it hasn't moved since I went to America. When was that?
It's your dust collector.
It was like last July, I think.
Yeah. Or it was May, I think.
May, June.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that's when I last played.
You got it late. So I think it was June when you got it. You got it late.
Yeah. So that's the last time I played it, and that's like, we're coming up on a year now. So yeah. So I always get those inclinations, and the thing is, like, with the Portal, when it came out, I was like, it's expensive, but like, it's got the ecosystem I love, right? Like every time there's a port, like up until this point, aside from the PSP and stuff and the PS Vita, there's always been like, well, if I get this, I'm buying into a system, an ecosystem that I don't exactly love. Like obviously the Steam Deck's there, but that's like as of recent. But like, I don't know, like the Switch, I'm not a Nintendo gamer. Okay, otherwise we'd be doing a Nintendo podcast. So like when the Portal came out and it was released and it was announced, and I was like, maybe I could get behind that price, because at the end of the day, I could play like God of War on the sofa. But then I always come back down to the thing where it's like, if I'm going to game, Brian, I'm going to be here in this chair with this headrest, with this microphone next to me, with these monitors. I love it. It's my station. There's my audio mixer there. There's my 2 PCs there. There's my, PS5. I'm sorted. Like, I'm happy. I'm comfy. Don't need to lay down. I don't want to go downstairs anyway.
See, and I agree with you totally. And I think this is where it comes in, where it's the different seasons of life.
Yes.
I think if I was a single dude like you with no kids, I would not. This Portal would be pointless for me.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, right? Like, if I go downstairs with this thing and I play it on the couch, where I should really be playing it, there's no point me playing it there, right? The bed. It's like I'm right here. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, right.
Like, if I play it downstairs, like I live with my mum, right, and my sister. They're gonna like, my mum hates that shit. Like if I play like an Instagram reel or something, or like a funny video or whatever, and it's just like on for 30 seconds, and she's watching TV, turn that shit off, you know? And I'm like, oh.
She'd be like, what the hell is that in your hand?
Dude, I sometimes like listen to your podcast out loud just so I don't have to wear headphones, and I'll go downstairs for like 2 seconds to get something to eat or whatever, and it like Sacred Icon will be blaring out and Josh will be laughing, and she'll be like, turn that off. Like, turn it off.
Your mom hates me.
Yeah, exactly. She hates you guys.
That's awesome. That's
yeah. So like, if I went downstairs with this PlayStation Portal, it's not gonna happen. Like, I'm gonna have to sit in a different room where I didn't intend to sit. I'm gonna have to either sit in the kitchen or the conservatory or the back garden. It's just not gonna work. And like you said, it's use case. Use case is so fucking important when it comes to these portable handhelds because I feel like it doesn't pertain to like consoles. Consoles is like, you get it because you want to play games, and it's the only way you can play games in many ways, just like a PC. Like, you either buy those things or you don't play games. Whereas like a portal or a portable console, you can play games like I do and you do mostly, stationary at a place with the main systems. There's no point buying into sub-platforms. So that's where I stand on it. But I do think it's very cool of a product. Like, I think that for what it's worth, like you said, it's selling out. Like, I ate my words with that because I remember talking about like the Portal potentially not selling very well when it was announced, because who's it for? I eat my words with that. A lot of people obviously bought it. It's done rather well for itself, better than the PSVR 2. That's for damn sure. I think it's cool, dude. I mean, I looked at the specifications of it online, and it's like literally a 3 megabyte download just to stream games from your PlayStation. That's real low, dude. Like, pretty much everyone has that, you know. And
it was crazy being at my parents' house, sitting on their couch, playing Rebirth, like going through the story, and it just flawless. It was so strange.
Yeah, it's dope. And like, for you, perfect, you know. And me, maybe in a different phase of life, if I ever got married, ever got a kid, whatever.
Yeah,
like perfect for me, potentially.
Yeah, it's a specific use case.
Yeah, but sure. I'm not mad about it. Like, you know, I don't think it's been wasted vein for PlayStation, like with the PSVR stuff that they've done. I think it's a step in the direction for potentially going native with it, as well as having a streaming portable option. Mm-hmm. I think it's dope. I'm excited to see like what the second one potentially does if they ever come out with one.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, and this could be a big topic for a future episode, but it's interesting to see. Like, I could definitely see the next generation of consoles, both Xbox and Sony, offering a native portable, because that's just what's hot right now. The Steam Deck Switch was already paving the way, but it was kind of like the Wii, right? Like, Switch was paving the way, but it was just a Nintendo thing. Mm-hmm. You know, the Wii was just paving the way, but then it was a Microsoft Kinect thing and a PlayStation Move thing.
Cool.
That's happening again now. So the Steam has made it clear, like, this is something bigger than just Nintendo doing it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely.
Okay, the last thing we'll touch on quickly, and this is something we'll definitely revisit with like more in depth on like the specs and whatnot. But this will kind of be our last question for the day. Something I found interesting, because this is a product that I didn't think I would buy because it's not necessary to my life at all. But the more and more I've been thinking about it, I'm like, I think I'm really going to want that. And what I'm talking about is the PlayStation 5 Pro that's coming later this year. You know, I got the PS4 Pro back when it came out, and it did a lot for the PlayStation 4. Mm-hmm. I feel like it offered more options with like performance mode and quality mode. And the PS5 Pro coming out later this year. I don't know how much it's going to cost. We have leaked specs. Like I said, we might go over at a later time. But I've just been thinking recently, I'm like, maybe I could sell my PlayStation that I have now and sell my Xbox, which I use mostly as a 4K player, and then get a PS5 Pro with the disc drive, because I don't have a disc drive on my PlayStation right now.
Okay.
And then play my 4Ks on the PlayStation 5 Pro, and then maybe get a new TV, because my TV is like 7 years old.
Yeah.
And I could be playing, like, could I potentially play, like God of War Ragnarok, 60 frames, 4K on a big TV? I don't know. If the Pro was 500, let's see, what is a PlayStation 5 going for right now? Is it 500?
Yeah, 500, I think. It depends obviously on your currency.
Okay. Yeah, so a PS5 Pro is going to be at least 600. Yeah. Realistically, I probably wouldn't get one this year, but I guess my question to you, Joe, is what would it take for you to early adopt a PS5 Pro? Because for me, the shortest answer is big noticeable increase to my gameplay experience, which would be basically like pretty much any game that's come out on PS5 now, if it can be 60 frames, 4K, no graphical compromises, I might be in. But what if it's 700? I don't know. Crazy talk. Over to you, Joe.
Yeah, I don't want it.
Not at all? No interest?
Like, okay, so like, here's the thing. PS5 right now plays games how I want, okay? Like, I'm not bothered, okay? And again, it sounds snobbery, sounds like Master Race or whatever, but like, I have a state-of-the-art fucking PC right next to me with a fucking state-of-the-art Radeon graphics card, great processor, out the wazoo. If I want graphics from my titles, even if it means waiting, I will. And I wait.
You don't need Sony's petty half-step upgrade.
But like, this is the thing. Like, maybe if I sold it and got some money back, and then put, like you said, kind of like put that into like the new ecosystem or whatever. Like, fair, like yeah. But I also just worry that like we're so far into this ecosystem now, or this generation, sorry, that like when is the PS6? You know, like it
seems kind of pointless because we've barely even experienced this generation exclusively to have a Pro, right? Like Microsoft saying they're not even going to do one.
Yeah.
So.
But at the same time, this is the perfect point for PlayStation to start bringing out the Pro. If they brought the Pro out around the time that, say, like, I don't know, God of War Ragnarok was just about to release, too early, because that game was made for PS4 at the same time, you know? And, like, so I get it from a business standpoint. I think if you want the bells and whistles and that's your main console, like you're, like, mainly PlayStation in terms of, like, what you play on, in terms of where, like, you share your time, that's great. Like, yeah, 100%. Like, you want the bells and whistles, you want the fancy-pantsy, go for it. But I think that for me personally, to get like a more powerful PS5 when I can do the same on what I have now, I'm just dropping hundreds of pounds. I don't know because like I just think ultimately like I am happy with what I have. And I drop always to performance mode over graphical fidelity mode when I play because in all honesty, like these games play fucking awesome on their like performance mode. They look awesome. They look like Ragnarok looks gorgeous on performance mode, and I have a 1440p screen. I don't mind at all. So yeah.
No, I hear you. I think there's probably a pretty decent chance neither of us would get it this year. I don't feel the need for it either. But there just is. I was looking at my Xbox and I was like, okay, the games I play on you are all on PC, and most of them I actually already own from crossplay, like cross purchase. I know it's really sad, Joe, and we're not going to get into this now, but I was like, man, one game I would miss if I sold my Xbox because there's no way to play it on PC is actually Halo 5, which I know is heresy.
Wow.
Because I actually like that game. I like that game. Yeah. But no, most of the stuff's there, and I was like, oh crap, we don't have no way to play all of our discs. But I was like, oh, I could sell both my PS5 and my Series X, get a PS5 Pro, have the disc drive in there, have the new beefy stuff. Like, and the thing is, Ghost of Tsushima 2, is that coming? We know GTA 6 is coming. Yeah. What could that Pro do?
Oh, yeah, true. Yeah, maybe that would make me... I don't know, because I don't know if I'd... Yeah, I'd probably get GTA on the PlayStation. So, yeah, dude, I mean, the Xbox for you now is basically... You know, like the meme where, like, in Toy Story, where Andy drops Woody, and I don't want to play with you no more. That's you with the Xbox, dude. And shout out to Wesley. That's Wesley right now as well.
I think we're all getting there. I think we're getting, because Microsoft's given us less of a reason to, right? And that's why the PlayStation ecosystem's always been better, really, but like it's just looking so much more alluring now to look at this console and what this company's achieved with their games and their lineup and their studios and their hardware and everything. So I love it. But yeah, Joe's
Holy Grail, baby.
DualSense.
The Holy Grail.
I love the DualSense, dude.
Best controller. Right. Don't care.
Yeah, it's awesome, dude. Joe, I've really enjoyed recording with you. This has been an awesome first episode of Critical Frames.
Yeah, boy. Love it. Been amazing, dude.
Yeah, I really had a great time, and I'm excited for what we can talk about. And I know we're very close to a PlayStation State of Play, and of course getting into E3 season, so there's going to be lots to talk about. But yeah, guys, you know, if you enjoyed what we did here today at Critical Frames, a PlayStation podcast, let us know.
Right in, baby.
We're on Twitter. Yeah, we're on Twitter at Critical Frames, just like the show title. Nice and simple. We have an email, right, Joe? Is it at Gmail?
Yeah, criticalframes@gmail.com. Write us, send us voice clips if you want to. Yeah, do it all.
Absolutely, guys. And just just let us know what you thought of the show, what you'd like to hear in the future, some PlayStation topics that you'd like to hear us tackle, some maybe nostalgic stuff to like older games, older memories, maybe new segments for the show that you think would really fit well. We'd love to hear your feedback. We'd really appreciate the follows and the heads up. We're not going to get in over our head with a Discord server or a Patreon or anything like that yet, but we'd just like to really put out some great content for you guys and to hear some feedback. So if you would do that for us, we'd really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So,
hell yeah, dude.
Any final words from you, Joe?
No, dude. I'm just excited to see where this goes. And I'm excited to see what the PlayStation ecosystem becomes. So, yeah.
Absolutely, guys. All right. Well, thank you so much, guys, for listening to the first episode of Critical Frames, a PlayStation podcast. And we will see you next week. Bye, guys.
Peace. Critical Frames, a PlayStation podcast, is recorded multinationally between the United Kingdom and the United States of America. The show is produced and edited by myself, Joseph Smalley, as well as being directed and conceived in partnership with the show's host, Brian Arvett. All of Critical Frames' music is by Charlie Bethencourt.